Chapter 461. When Long Yu's heart's tribulation appeared, his doubts were magnified to the point that he couldn't stop thinking about them. This isn't good. Long Yu's heart sank. If he keeps immersing himself in these doubts, it won't be long before he's completely lost. When a martial cultivator steps into human's tribulation realm, if they don't pass the heart's tribulation, they'll most likely fall unconscious and become possessed. When they wake up, they'll find that everything they've done was for nothing, and it'll be extremely difficult to break through to human's tribulation realm again. In fact, falling unconscious is still a good thing, but the worst thing is to be forever lost in the heart's tribulation, and no one will be able to save you until you die. Doubts. I do have doubts in my heart, but this has never been the main question that I think about. Long Yu forced himself to calm down and thought to himself, no matter how many questions I have, I'll have to solve them one by one, and the only way to solve these questions is to continuously increase my strength. If I can't find the answer even after coming to Shenwu World, then I'll just detach from this world, leave Shenwu World, and head to the legendary sky beyond. As long as I keep improving my martial realm and become stronger, I'll understand everything sooner or later. Thinking that, Long Yu suddenly opened his eyes, veins popped out on his forehead, but he didn't care. He flew into the air, his black robe fluttering in the wind as he flew to the waterfall behind the courtyard, getting soaked by the cold water. As he walked out from the waterfall, Long Yu was still a bit scared. He didn't think that the heart's tribulation of human's tribulation realm would be so hard to deal with. If it weren't for his strong willpower, he would have already fallen into those endless doubts. What he didn't know was that, due to some unknown reason, the heart's tribulation he faced was far more terrifying than any other normal martial cultivator. Furthermore, this was only the lower tribulation of human's tribulation. After this, there'll be the middle tribulation and the upper tribulation, which will be even harder to deal with than this. Let's not think too much about it. I'll just have to deal with it when it comes. I'll just have to follow this path. Raising his head, Long Yu's eyes flashed with unprecedented determination. After this heart's tribulation, he finally broke through the bottleneck and stepped into human's tribulation realm. He could easily feel that his connection with the world was getting stronger and stronger. The law of Een, nightmare lightning, and sunfire, the power I can display is at least 5 times, or even 10 times more than when I was at human's tribulation realm. Long Yu clenched his fist, which glowed with the 4 colors of the law. Extreme Een, nightmare thunder, sunflame, and 9 nether. These were the 4 types of laws of heaven and earth that Long Yu had comprehended. In addition, he had also comprehended the heavenly tear's blood. This was a heavenly crystal law, but he had only comprehended it to the concept level. If he wanted to comprehend a heavenly crystal law, it would not be easy. Because of this, the tribulation realm youth Zhuo Zetian, whom Long Yu had defeated, had comprehended the heaven crystal law, heaven seizing blood shadow. That was why he was so rare. In the entire Jura County, he could be considered a genius. However, if a tribulation realm expert uses heaven, it will be much more powerful. I might not be able to withstand it. Long Yu carefully estimated his own strength, and concluded that if he met a heavenly flower realm cultivator like Yuan Liang, he should have no problem fighting them head-on. But if he met tribulation realm experts like Sha Yuantian, Ling Hu, Qian Yin, and Ling Zhiping, Long Yu still didn't have a high chance of winning. But if he met tribulation realm experts like Sha Yuantian, Ling Hu, Qian Yin, and Ling Zhiping, Long Yu still didn't have a high chance of winning. Of course, on the path of martial arts, strength wasn't the only thing that mattered. In a real life or death situation, Long Yu might not lose to his opponent. Moreover, even if Long Yu couldn't win, he could still escape into the Dragon Bone Tower. He would still be invincible. After breaking through to the human's tribulation realm, Long Yu was in a good mood and returned to the courtyard he lived in. In the past 3 days and 3 nights, no one came to disturb him. Even when he went to the waterfall behind the courtyard, he didn't see little Fatty and Rin Pingfan on the other side of the river. Long Yu didn't pay much attention and prepared to rest for a while. But at this moment, a young man in a black shirt suddenly came to the entrance of the courtyard where Long Yu was and shouted, "Where is Long Yu?" "I am." Long Yu frowned and looked at the young man. "What can I do for you?" "The princess is looking for you, for something urgent. Come with me quickly." The young man in the black shirt had a cold expression. After saying this, he turned and left. Long Yu was stunned for a moment before he followed. "Why is the princess looking for me?" "You'll know when you get there. I'm just here to lead the way." The young man in the black shirt said indifferently and then rose into the air. "Fly with me." At first, Long Yu was a little suspicious. Could this guy be lying to him with ulterior motives? But on second thought, this is the princess territory. Who would have the guts to mess around here? He rose into the air and followed the black-clothed youth. The young man's movements seemed a little erratic and sneaky. It was as if he was afraid of being seen by others. Long Yu didn't have any doubts at first. But seeing this situation, he couldn't help but frown. "Where is the princess now?" "Just ahead. We'll be there soon. Come with me." As the black-robed young man spoke, he flew forward at a rapid speed. He circled around several mountain peaks and flew past mountain valleys. Not long after, he brought Long Yu to another valley located in the middle of several mountain peaks. Long Yu saw that the valley in front of him was surrounded by a layer of light yellow light screen. It completely surrounded the valley, making it impossible to see what was inside. Then, the young man in the black shirt landed at the entrance of the valley. "The princess is waiting for you in the valley. Long Yu, go in." The young man in the black shirt raised his hand and displayed some kind of divine power. Immediately, a gap appeared in the light yellow light screen. It was just enough for one person to enter. "What is this place?" Long Yu narrowed his eyes and asked. "This valley garden has the Azura sacred tree. It is a relatively hidden but sacred place in the Azura Valley. The princess has something to tell you. Why don't you go in?" The young man in the black shirt was a little unhappy when he heard Long Yu's question. Hearing this, Long Yu took 2 steps forward. Suddenly, he stopped and asked, "Have I seen you somewhere before?" When he said this, Long Yu stared at the black-clothed youth's eyes, trying to find something from them. Long Yu definitely didn't see the young man's face before. Maybe this guy used some kind of disguise technique? Long Yu looked at the young man's eyes and seemed to see something familiar. Tian Xinghe's eyes are like this. Long Yu's heart pounded as he stared at the black-robed youth. He could feel the indistinct aura of the transcendent secret realm coming from him. He couldn't help but wonder, could this fellow be Heavenly Galaxy in disguise? However, Tian Xinghe was an expert in the secret realm. If he wanted to deal with Long Yu, there was no need for him to go through so much trouble to scheme against Long Yu. "Did you remember wrongly?" The young man in the black shirt sneered, and his eyes were cold. "I have never seen you before. If you don't go in now and delay the princess's time, can you bear the consequences?" Long Yu squinted his eyes and suddenly raised his hand. The divine character hidden was instantly displayed, and his figure completely disappeared. Then, the celestial chi in his body exploded, and he immediately used the dragon sparrow instant teleportation. With a terrifying speed, he escaped in the opposite direction of the valley. From the eyes of the young man in the black shirt, he clearly saw a familiar shadow. Even if this person wasn't Tian Xinghe, he was someone like him. He definitely wasn't one of the princess's people. If that was the case, then this valley with the Azura holy tree was completely someone who wanted to frame Long Yu and forcefully bring him here. However, Long Yu's martial arts realm was still too weak. Seeing that Long Yu was trying to escape, the young man in the black shirt sneered. With a raise of his hand, a terrifying pressure of the laws of heaven and earth spread out. Long Yu had just flown a short distance when he was suddenly enveloped by this pressure. He couldn't move at all. "It really is you, Tian Xinghe." A fierce glint flashed in Long Yu's eyes. "You've schemed to bring me here. What do you want?" As he spoke, Long Yu was already prepared to unleash the ancient Dragon Bone Tower at any time. After all, given the current situation, if the other party wanted to kill him, there was only one way out: to hide in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. However, the young man in the black shirt smiled coldly. "I'm not Tian Xinghe, but it's better if you go in." With that, the young man in the black shirt turned his head and waved his hand. He easily threw Long Yu's entire body toward the entrance of the pale yellow light screen in the valley. As fast as lightning, Long Yu did not even have the time to react. His entire body had already passed through the light yellow barrier of light, and he fell heavily onto the ground of the valley, touching the vines and other green plants that covered the ground. Long Yu grunted and got up as quickly as he could. However, he saw that the young man in the black shirt was smiling disdainfully at him outside the pale yellow light screen, before turning around and leaving. Long Yu could sense that the pale yellow light screen could only be opened with the power of a specific divine text. He had not comprehended this power. In other words, he was trapped in this valley. Just as his expression darkened and he was thinking about how to leave this place, he suddenly felt a violent tremor under his feet. He lost his footing and fell to the ground. Chapter 462. At this moment, Long Yu naturally understood that the young man in the black robe, regardless of whether he was from the Sky Star River or not, was obviously trying to lure him into this valley. This valley was covered by a light yellow light screen. When a young man in the black robe left, Long Yu had no way to leave at all. All he could do now was to desperately resist these green vines that suddenly burst out from the ground. Is this the so-called Azura sacred tree? There was a chill in Long Yu's eyes, and the laws of the 9 serenities spread all over his body, instantly condensing into a light screen of the heavenly mandate divine light, blocking the green vines that were about to entangle him. This way, he finally had the time to observe the green vines, only to discover that on the green vines, there were actually human faces, one after another, revealing a deep green color, causing Long Yu to feel a little creeped out. The eyes on these faces all looked at Long Yu. At this moment, Long Yu felt as if there were thousands of people peeping at him, which made him shudder uncontrollably. Heavenly mandate, divine light. Laws of the 9 serenities, light, explosion. Long Yu subconsciously urged the heavenly mandate divine light beside him, and the dark light screen exploded. Suddenly, a terrifying force swept out, blasting away all the green vines with human faces around. Let's go. Long Yu used his fastest speed to leave his original spot. He rose into the air and flew into the sky. When he looked at the entire valley, what he saw made him suck in a breath of cold air. There was actually a sea of green vines in the entire valley. As far as the eye could see, the entire valley was covered with green vines. These green vines all had dark green, terrifying human faces. At this moment, as if they had sensed the breath of a living person like Long Yu, the green vines in the entire valley all seemed to have come to life, stretching toward Long Yu and entangling him rapidly. Nether Dragon Blade, kill. Long Yu held the Nether Dragon Blade tightly in his hand, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then he cut one of the green vines, easily cutting it off. Then green juice flowed from it, and the entire vine wilted. However, Long Yu noticed that there seemed to be a mysterious power that was once again transmitted from the roots of the entire vine. In an instant, the wilted green vine was filled with vitality again, and it stretched out to entangle him again. What's under the ground of this valley? Long Yu looked towards the center of the valley and discovered that there was a small tree growing there. The branches and leaves of the small tree were luxuriant. Although it wasn't very tall, it was in the shape of an umbrella. Furthermore, its roots spread out in all directions, just like the arteries and veins of the human body, connecting the entire valley with the green vines. It seems that to deal with these vines, I have to start with that small tree. But the entire valley is filled with green vines, and I can't get through it all. Long Yu gritted his teeth. It seemed that he had no choice but to release the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. A single green vine was very easy to deal with. In terms of combat power, it was roughly equivalent to a martial arts practitioner in the human tribulation realm, which was very easy for Long Yu to deal with. However, there were countless vines all over the mountains, and the small tree in the center of the valley, which was the so-called Azura sacred tree, could quickly revive these green vines. In this way, it was impossible for Long Yu to get rid of all these green vines. Long Yu tried to condense a beam of heavenly mandate divine light, and blasted it at the small tree in the center of the valley. However, at such a distance, the beam of heavenly mandate divine light was blocked by countless green vines in midair. Although the green vines were smashed into pieces by the heavenly mandate divine light, they were given infinite vitality by the small tree in a short while. There's no other way. Long Yu made up his mind and immediately released the ancient Dragonbone Tower before the green vines surrounded him. Then, he directly went to the 7th level of the ancient Dragonbone Tower through the dragon scale of the Hades. Since they have lured me here, it means that they want to kill me. Since they want to kill me, then I will fight back. A cold light flashed in Long Yu's eyes. He then activated the ancient Dragonbone Tower and directly charged at the small tree in the center of the valley. Countless green vines flew up and wrapped around the entire giant ancient Dragonbone Tower, trying to stop the figure of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. However, Long Yu activated the power of the divine text in the ancient Dragonbone Tower that was similar to the 5-color siphon, and directly began to absorb the power of the green vines wrapped around the surface of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. The green vines that wrapped around the ancient Dragonbone Tower began to rapidly wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, very quickly, vitality was injected and they were revived. The cycle repeated. Not only did the green vines that wrapped around the ancient Dragonbone Tower not decrease, they even increased in number. Finally, not far from the small tree, the entire ancient Dragonbone Tower was bound in midair, unable to move forward even a small step. Long Yu's plan to destroy the small tree could be said to have completely failed. Not only that, the green vines increased in number and continuously covered the ancient Dragonbone Tower layer by layer. Then, a green liquid seeped out from the vines. It was obvious that it contained a highly toxic substance. Some of the rocks attached to the surface of the ancient Dragonbone Tower were directly corroded by the green liquid. These green vines attempted to corrode the entire ancient Dragonbone Tower. Unfortunately, the ancient Dragonbone Tower was the battle weapon used by the dragon of the Hades. The materials used to refine it were extremely precious. It was likely that it could not be found in the entire Shenwu world. Although these green vines were powerful, it was impossible for them to corrode the entire ancient Dragonbone Tower. However, since Long Yu was hiding in the ancient Dragonbone Tower, there was no way for him to escape. It was equivalent to being trapped in this valley. As soon as Long Yu left the ancient Dragonbone Tower, he would be faced with the green vines that covered the sky and ground. Only death would await him. What a headache! What the hell is this place? Long Yu was quite confused. Although he was not going to die for now, he was still extremely disgusted to be trapped in such a creepy place for no reason. Just looking at the tens of thousands of human faces wrapped around the ancient Dragonbone Tower was enough to make him feel suffocated. Even though Long Yu's mental fortitude was extremely strong, he still shuddered when he saw such a scene. Forget it. There's no way I can leave this place on my own. I'll just wait patiently for someone to come. Long Yu pondered for a moment and gave up on the idea of rushing out. The entire ancient Dragonbone Tower was completely entangled by the green vines, and he could not move at all. As for him, he would be corroded to death the moment he stepped out. There was no hope of him leaving this place. Since that was the case, he might as well wait patiently for someone to come to his rescue. This place was very close to Azura Valley, and the Azura Sacred Tree seemed to be rather important to the entire Azura Prefecture. If he waited for a few days, wouldn't someone discover the abnormality here? If it wasn't for the ancient Dragonbone Tower, I would really have died here. But now, Long Yu sneered. As long as he had the chance to leave, he would definitely find out who had brought him here today and what that person's motives were. If it was purely to kill him, then Long Yu would definitely take revenge. Following that, Long Yu decided to ignore the situation in the outside world and instead focused on cultivating on the 7th level of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. If he did not believe in the ancient Dragonbone Tower now, there was nothing else he could believe in. If the ancient Dragonbone Tower could be destroyed by the corrosion, then it would be useless no matter how much he struggled. In the end, he would still be corroded to death by the sap of the green vines. Hence, he decisively began to cultivate. Since Shu Chan said that you're similar in nature to the five-colored siphon law, then I'll call you the power of the siphon divine rune. Long Yu sensed the rich power of the five-colored siphon outside the seventh level of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. He sat in the middle and began to comprehend it. Back in the Heaven Fiend Forest, when Long Yu had obtained the mark of the self-healing divine rune, he had already experienced the terrifying power of the siphon divine rune. It could actually completely absorb the power of the self-healing divine rune from the trees in the Heaven Fiend Forest. Although it was useless against the green vines now, it was still an extremely powerful power of the divine rune. If he could comprehend it, it would greatly increase Long Yu's battle prowess. The power of the divine rune is divided into 3 levels. The strongest comes from the source of the divine rune, followed by the divine rune inscriptions, and finally the 10% of the power of the divine rune comprehended through various means. Long Yu thought to himself, I've only comprehended 10% of the nether divine rune I have, but this is the strongest power that comes from the source of the divine rune. The power of the siphon divine rune in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower should also be the power that the dragon of the 9 underworlds obtained from the source of the divine rune. The nether divine rune and the siphon divine rune were the 2 strongest divine runes that Long Yu had come into contact with. Secondly, he had also comprehended the power of the divine runes. He had also obtained the self-healing rune inscriptions, as well as the 10% of the hidden divine runes power that he had comprehended previously. Possessing the power of 5 divine runes, Long Yu was probably an extremely special existence in the entire Shura prefecture. Of course, he had yet to comprehend the siphon divine rune, so he might as well make use of this opportunity to give it a try. Every martial cultivator has a different attribute, and the degree of compatibility with the divine runes attribute is also different. I wonder what attribute this siphon divine rune's power is. I should be able to quickly grasp it. As Long Yu thought to himself, he quickly discarded all distracting thoughts and began to comprehend the power of the siphon divine rune. While Long Yu was trapped in the Azura Sacred Tree Valley, the young county lord, Shu Chan, arrived at the entrance of the courtyard where Long Yu resided once again. She had come every day for the past 3 days, but each time she discovered that Long Yu was cultivating, so she did not disturb him. Today, she came again to see if Long Yu was free. She wanted to invite Long Yu to the martial skill pagoda in the Azura Valley so that Long Yu could choose some martial techniques to cultivate. However, when she arrived at the entrance of the courtyard where Long Yu resided, she discovered that Long Yu had disappeared. Chapter 463. Shu Chan searched through all the courtyards she owned and even asked Rin Ping Fan, who lived next door to Long Yu. However, Rin Ping Fan said that he hadn't seen Long Yu for the past few days. As for what happened just now, he was called out by someone and didn't get to see when Long Yu left. That lad has your token. He'll be fine even if he runs around in this area. Don't worry. Rin Ping Fan chuckled and said casually, I'm afraid it's not that simple. Ping Fan, who called you out just now? Shu Chan frowned slightly. It's a brother I met a long time ago. He invited me out for a drink. Your Highness, you know that I can do without anything but wine. Hee hee. Rin Ping Fan said as he carefully observed Shu Chan's expression. Who's your brother's man? Shu Chan asked. Your Highness, are you suspecting that someone did something to that lad Long Yu? Rin Ping Fan couldn't help but frown when he heard Shu Chan's question. Logically speaking, since he's your man, no one should dare to do anything to him. Even if he's killed, aren't they afraid that you'll blame them when it's investigated? Call that brother of yours over. I'll ask him about the situation first. Shu Chan said with a wave of her hand. I'll go right now. Little Fatty nodded his head repeatedly. He dared to disobey anyone but the county princess. Although he felt that it wasn't appropriate to suspect his own brother, he had to do as the princess said. While Shu Chan was investigating Long Yu's disappearance, Long Yu was hiding on the 7th level of the Dragon Skeleton Pagoda in the valley filled with green vines. He was also trying to comprehend the power of the siphon rune. Divine runes are divided into 8 different attributes. I wonder what attribute this siphon divine rune belongs to, but it's definitely not a shadow attribute. After all, it emits a multicolored glow, which is completely inconsistent with the yin and hidden divine runes. As Long Yu thought to himself, he immersed his mind into the dense five-colored light, constantly sensing the operation of these siphon divine characters. The power of the siphon divine rune could absorb the life energy contained in the trees in the Heaven Fiend Forest. It was obvious that it was an extremely high-level divine rune power. Surpassing inscriptions, they were directly taken from the source of divine runes and stored on the 7th floor of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. Right now, Long Yu could activate the power of the siphon divine rune. However, the power stored in the 7th floor of the ancient Dragonbone Tower decreased with each use. Only when Long Yu had comprehended it himself would he be able to unleash it endlessly and use it against his enemies during normal times. The power of this siphon divine rune can be said to be one of the best treasures in the ancient Dragonbone Tower. As Long Yu thought to himself, he activated the power of the siphon divine rune to absorb the power of the green vines entwined around the ancient Dragonbone Tower. Although absorbing the green vines would not cause fatal damage to the tower, Long Yu could clearly feel the specific effects of the siphon divine rune during the process. If one were to observe this power closely, they would discover that the five-colored light was divided into tiny beams of five-colored light. These beams of five-colored light were completely entwined together. Once they came into contact with other powers, they would stir and produce a suction force that would absorb them and convert a portion of them into his own energy. In other words, if he could completely comprehend the power of the siphon divine rune, Long Yu would be able to easily defeat most opponents in the heavenly being realm with just this power alone. Even heavenly tribulation realm experts would not be able to fight back against Long Yu's many tricks. Of course, this only applied to ordinary heavenly tribulation realm experts, such as Deputy Palace Lord Shao and Shao Xuanlong on Heavenly Mandate Island. If it was a heavenly tribulation realm expert from the Shura Prefecture, Long Yu would not be able to say for sure that he would be able to deal with them. However, those at the heavenly beginning realm would definitely not be a match for Long Yu. This was something that Long Yu was very confident about. Once he comprehended the power of the siphon divine rune, he would not be at a disadvantage even when facing martial cultivators at the heavenly Hua realm. The most important thing to comprehend the siphon divine rune was the first 7 days. Even after being schemed against and trapped in this strange valley, Long Yu was still able to calmly hide in the ancient Dragonbone Tower and comprehend the power of the siphon divine rune. This was a testament to his strong will. If it had been anyone else, even if they had a life-saving weapon like the ancient Dragonbone Tower, they would probably be filled with anxiety and be unable to concentrate. 1 day, 2 days, 7 days passed very quickly. Long Yu was fully focused on comprehending the power of the siphon divine rune. What made him gratified was that although the siphon divine rune wasn't a shadow attribute divine rune, the speed at which he comprehended it was not slow. Just like the self-healing rune, Long Yu comprehended 1% of the power of the siphon divine rune within these 7 days. This made Long Yu a little puzzled. Could it be that the siphon divine rune was a life attribute divine rune like the self-healing rune? Of course, Long Yu could not be sure of this at the moment. He opened his eyes and realized that no one had come to this valley until now. In these 7 days, no one had discovered that he was in this valley, completely entangled by countless green vines. I wonder how long I'll have to wait. Long Yu frowned slightly. He thought of the small tree in the middle of the valley. It was called the Shura Sacred Tree, so it should be a rather important existence to the Shura Prefecture. In that case, he was not worried that he would be trapped here forever. In any case, the green sap from the green vines was unable to corrode the ancient Dragonbone Tower, so Long Yu's life was not in danger at all. It would not be a problem for him to wait as long as he wanted. Just like that, another 2 days passed. All of a sudden, Shu Chan, the young princess in a short black skirt, flew over from outside the light yellow light screen that enveloped the valley with a gloomy face. Accompanying her was the little fatty Ren Pingfan. Princess, we've searched everywhere. If we still can't find Long Yu in this valley, could he have escaped? Ren Pingfan asked in a low voice. He and Shu Chan had gone to question his brother, but they had not obtained any useful information. His brother did not belong to any faction, nor did he work for Bai Qing or the Sky Galaxy. It was impossible for him to target Long Yu. Shu Chan had used all her authority as a princess to search the entire Shura Valley for traces of Long Yu. However, even after 9 days, there was still no news of Long Yu. This put Shu Chan in a very bad mood. He won't run away. We've searched everywhere. This is the only place left. Shu Chan's eyes were cold. She raised her hand, and the power of the Shura divine characters, which could only be comprehended by the powerhouses of the Shura prefecture, spread out from her hand. Immediately, a gap appeared in the layer of faint yellow light barrier above the valley. Shu Chan and Rin Pingfan looked into the gap. Their expressions changed when they saw it. What's going on with the Azurus sacred tree? Why are the vines squeezed together? Rin Pingfan looked into the distance and saw that the green vines in the valley were all squeezed together. They had actually piled up into the shape of a tower. This was something Rin Pingfan had never seen before. It's Long Yu. Shu Chan's voice became even colder. She could tell at a glance that the giant tower was the ancient Dragon Bone Tower controlled by Long Yu. She did not know what grade of combat weapon Long Yu's ancient Dragon Bone Tower was, but the Azurus sacred tree was the most terrifying weapon of war in the Shura prefecture since ancient times. It was easy to imagine the fate of Long Yu, who had fallen into this valley. I hope he's fine, Shu Chan said coldly. Rin Pingfan could not help but smile bitterly when he heard Shu Chan say that Long Yu was inside. Princess, that kid has at most just stepped into the human tribulation realm. How could he possibly survive after falling into the hands of the Azurus sacred tree? Follow me in. Shu Chan ignored little Fatty's bitter smile and flew into the valley. Princess, be careful of danger. Little Fatty turned pale with fright when he saw this. He hurriedly followed behind Shu Chan as his body ignited in flames. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a fat fireball as he followed behind Shu Chan. Divine power, burning blade of heavenly fire. Little Fatty Ren Pingfan's voice suddenly turned solemn. With a roar, 4 flaming sabers appeared beside him and began to revolve around him. He followed closely behind Shu Chan. Without making any movements, the 4 flaming sabers flew out automatically and burned the green vines that were attacking them to ashes. The green vines in the valley did not differentiate between friend and foe. They even attacked Shu Chan and Rin Pingfan at the same time. Blast that cluster of vines away. Shu Chan pointed at the tower-shaped sea of vines and said with a cold look in her eyes, "It's best that Long Yu is still alive. Otherwise, I'll fall out with him immediately." Fall out with who? Rin Pingfan was getting more and more frustrated. However, he still obeyed Shu Chan's words and controlled the 4 flaming sabers to attack the tower-shaped sea of vines. Shu Chan did not stand idly by. She raised her hand gently, and a pair of eyes that seemed to have emerged from hell appeared above her head. Divine power, eyes of Azura. As Shu Chan exclaimed softly, a terrifying suppressive force was unleashed from the eyes of Azura. The suppressive force spread out and caused the green vines in the surroundings to retreat while trembling. Princess, you're getting stronger. It's only a matter of time before you enter the Emperor Path mystic ground. Rin Pingfan's eyes lit up when he saw this. Cut the crap. Hurry up and get to work. Shu Chan harumphed. She was in a better mood now, because she could finally see that the dragon skeleton ancient tower was completely undamaged despite the thick layer of green vines. Chapter 464. Long Yu hid in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower and cultivated calmly. After entering the human tribulation state, Long Yu broke through the first mental tribulation. However, he did not know when the next 2 mental tribulations would come. It was said that mental tribulations came without warning. I hope they won't come in the middle of a battle. Long Yu thought to himself and shook his head. He was currently learning the martial arts technique of Wulong's sparrow dance. If he could cultivate it to the transcendence or transcendent state, it would undoubtedly be of great help to Long Yu's speed. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that the green vines that were tightly wrapped around the ancient Dragonbone Tower had suddenly been blasted open by someone. Through this gap, Long Yu looked out and saw the young princess, Shu Chan, and the little fatty, Rin Pingfan, flying in the air and attacking the green vines with all their might. Even an expert of the secret state of divinity would find it difficult to deal with so many green vines and could not remain calm. Those 4 flaming sabers are so powerful that they can completely burn the green vines into ashes. They won't be able to regenerate for a long time. That pair of eyes of Azura can actually release such a terrifying pressure that even the green vines are trembling in fear and retreating. Is this the theurgy of Shu Chan and Rin Pingfan? Long Yu finally witnessed the powerful connate theurgy displayed by an expert of the secret state of divinity. This power was completely different from a simple martial arts technique. It was more than 100 times more powerful. Even the divine light of heavenly mandate, which was activated by the power of the divine text, could not compare to such a connate theurgy. He recalled the time when he was fighting with the strange beasts. One of the strange beasts had released ice chains that froze the entire surface of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. This showed how terrifying its power was. Since someone has come to save me, it's time to leave. Seeing how hard Shu Chan and Rin Pingfan were working, Long Yu also activated the ancient Dragonbone Tower. He controlled the ancient Dragonbone Tower to fly in the direction of the opening that the 2 of them had opened. At the same time, he used the power of the Siphon Divine Rune that he had just comprehended to absorb all the life energy in the green vines. As such, Long Yu, Shu Chan, and Rin Pingfan worked together. Soon, the entire Dragonbone Tower was freed from the sea of green vines. More than half of the tower was revealed. Very good, let's go. A satisfied smile appeared on Shu Chan's pretty face. She raised her hand, and the pair of eyes of the Azura above her head emitted a terrifying pressure, causing the green vines that were about to give chase to freeze in their tracks. Before long, the ancient dragon skeleton tower broke free from the entanglement of the green vines and regained its freedom. Immediately afterwards, Long Yu kept the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda and entered the dragon scale of the Hades without any hesitation, appearing before Shu Chan and Rin Pingfan. Haha, little brother Long, you're actually still alive. Impressive, impressive. Rin Pingfan was very excited. His fat body was trembling uncontrollably. Long Yu being able to survive such a situation was completely out of his expectations. Enough nonsense. Let's go. Shu Chan smiled. Raising her hand, she brought Long Yu with her as she flew towards the light yellow barrier. Very quickly, the 3 of them left the terrifying valley. Then, the gap in the light yellow barrier closed naturally, and the Azura sacred tree continued to be confined in the valley. After coming out, Long Yu still felt some lingering fear. He glanced at the light yellow barrier above the valley. What on earth is that? Long Yu narrowed his eyes. His first sentence was a question. This is not the place to talk. Come with me. Shu Chan's eyes narrowed into crescent moons. With a wave of her hand, she led the 2 of them to a towering mountain in the distance. Soon, they arrived at the peak of a towering mountain. The 3 of them stood at the peak and looked out. The sea of clouds was rolling, creating a magnificent scene. This is my private territory where I take a stroll in my free time. Without my permission, no one else can come here. Shu Chan said proudly. Rin Pingfan nodded his head excitedly. I sensed that there was a barrier blocking me from coming here just now. However, it was dispelled by the princess with a wave of her hand. I believe that no one else can dispel that barrier. Yes, that's the barrier my father set up for me. Shu Chan nodded and smiled faintly. Here, we can have a proper conversation. Although you're fine, Long Yu, I'm very angry about this. Who brought you into the valley? I don't know who it was. I was already on my guard, but I didn't expect that person to use the power of the transcendent secret realm and forcefully throw me in. Long Yu frowned slightly as he described the appearance of the black-clothed youth, especially his eyes, which were very similar to Tian Xinghe's. After he finished, Shu Chan and Rin Pingfan looked at each other and saw a trace of doubt in each other's eyes. I've never seen such a person. The two of them shook their heads. The Azura sacred tree in the valley is our Shura County's weapon of war. What you saw was only a small part of it on the ground. Shu Chan temporarily put everything to the back of her mind and began to explain to Long Yu. Once a war breaks out with the other prefectures, this Azura sacred tree will be taken out by my father. Billions of vines will come out, and even a transcendent realm expert will not be able to resist. Hee, little brother Long, do you see the faces on the vines? Rin Pingfan chuckled. Those faces are the enemies that the Azura sacred tree has corroded and devoured. If you couldn't withstand it and were also corroded and devoured by the Azura sacred tree, your face would also appear on one of the vines. The Azura sacred tree can fight against thousands of soldiers and horses. What we faced just now was less than a 10,000th of the Azura sacred tree's combat power. Shu Chan said, to put it simply, the entire bottom of Azura Valley is covered in those green vines. Once the enemy invades, my father will activate those vines. As for the valley you just entered, it's the Azura sacred tree's main body. It must be preserved so it can't be sealed. You should know that only people my father truly trusts can open the barrier of the Azura sacred tree. There are no more than 10 people like that in the entire Shura County. After Shu Chan finished speaking, she looked at Long Yu. This princess will help you find out who did this, but before that, I'm afraid it's not suitable for you to stay here. And Long Yu nodded. From this incident, he could clearly sense that the princess, Shu Chan, could not do whatever she wanted in Shura County. When he had first arrived, Bai Qing and Tian Xinghe had provoked Shu Chan. Later on, the black-robed youth had schemed against him to enter the valley where the Azura sacred tree was. If you didn't have the dragon skeleton ancient pagoda, you definitely wouldn't have survived after being thrown into the Azura sacred tree valley. Furthermore, I have no idea who killed you and how they killed you. I might even think that you left this place on your own. Shu Chan frowned. These people are getting bolder and bolder. However, I'm still at the crucial moment of breaking through to the fourth mystique, so I can't make a big fuss. Fourth mystique. Long Yu asked when he heard a term that he did not understand. The God's secret realm is divided into 7 different levels. You'll be breaking through to the first level, and when you comprehend the second connate mystique, you'll be breaking through to the second level. Shu Chan explained, once you've comprehended all 7 mystiques, you'll be able to combine them into one and turn them into your monarch Dao. Of course, it's extremely difficult to combine all 7 mystiques and turn them into the monarch Dao. Not everyone can do it. In fact, the difficulty will increase with every additional connate mystique you comprehend. I understand. Hearing this, Long Yu nodded his head. It turned out that the fourth mystique was a level in the God's secret realm, just like the human initial realm and the human glory realm. The God's secret realm was divided into 7 mystiques, and Shu Chan was already breaking through to the fourth mystique. This showed that the princess's talent in martial arts far exceeded that of ordinary people. One must know that Shu Chan was not even 20 years old. With her talent, it was only a matter of time before she reached the monarch's secret realm. Since they're targeting you, Long Yu, why don't we let them think that you're dead? Shu Chan paused for a moment before she continued. I'll arrange a place for you to cultivate in peace. At the same time, I'll send Rin Pingfan to protect you. The Shura selection will begin in 3 months, and by then, I should have broken through to the fourth mystique. By then, I'll bring you back and avenge you. It was obvious that Shu Chan was angry this time, but she was extremely calm. She knew that she was at a critical juncture in her breakthrough, so she only wanted Long Yu to stay away. 3 months was not a long time, but if he continued to stay here, those people would have hundreds of ways to kill Long Yu, while Shu Chan was in closed-door cultivation. Even with Rin Pingfan's protection, it would be useless. Although this little fatty run, Ping Fan's strength wasn't bad. He couldn't always be by Long Yu's side. For example, this time when Long Yu was schemed against. Next time, if the other party saw that the Azura Sacred Tree could not kill Long Yu, they would probably send a Mystique Secret Realm expert to kill him or hire a martial arts assassin organization outside of Shura Prefecture. To avoid such a situation, the only way was to let Long Yu go somewhere else during these 3 months to avoid the brunt of the attack. Princess, you want me and little brother Long to go to the Nightmare Mountain Range together? Rin Ping Fan's eyes lit up. He had guessed Princess Shu Chan's intention. That's right. I'll arrange a fake identity for each of you to go to the Nightmare Mountain Range. Shu Chan nodded with a smile. It said that the Nightmare Mountain Range has produced many precious items. You could try your luck there. Maybe you'll find some fortuitous encounters. Haha, I wanted to go for a long time. I just don't know what identities you'll arrange for us, Princess. Chapter 465. Long Yu soon learned that the Nightmare Mountain Range was the largest mining area in Shura County. A legion of the Shura County King's subordinates was stationed in the Nightmare Mountain Range, and they were in charge of a large-scale mining team that mined minerals in the Nightmare Mountain Range. The Nightmare Mountain Range was an extremely rich spiritual vein and had always been a place of contention between the Shura County and the neighboring Ghost Evil County. Both sides occupied half of it, and the two sides maintained a balance. The minerals mined from the Nightmare Mountain Range could at least be refined into a profound Grade Soldier, and materials for refining an Earth Grade Soldier also frequently appeared there. There was even a possibility of rare materials for refining a Heaven Grade Soldier. It should be noted that even for martial cultivators at the level of Shura County King and Tian Xing'a, a Heaven Grade Soldier was not something that could be easily obtained. Although Long Yu had the Desolation Grade Ancient Dragonbone Tower and the Ancient Grade Soldier, the Void Spirit Dragonblade, who would complain about having too many soldiers. Little fatty Rin Ping Fan was very happy that Shu Chan had sent him and Long Yu to the Nightmare Mountain Range. It was said that the Nightmare Mountain Range had recently produced several rare materials that could be used to refine Heaven Grade Soldiers, which surprised the people of the Shura Valley. Rin Ping Fan was sent by Shu Chan to the Legion of the Shura County King as a guest military advisor. As a powerful martial cultivator with 2 divine abilities, Rin Ping Fan was equivalent to the deputy commanders of the Legion. Of course, it was not a problem for him to be a guest military advisor. Of course, the most important task that Shu Chan had given Rin Ping Fan was to protect Long Yu in the Nightmare Mountain Range. Because they had to conceal themselves, no one would know that the two of them were going to the Nightmare Mountain Range, and their identities would also be changed. As for Long Yu, he still chose the name Mountain Ghost, and was sent by Shu Chan to the mining team of the Legion. Long Yu mainly focused on cultivation. If he were to sneak into the mining team, not only would he be able to conceal himself to the greatest extent, but he might also be able to obtain something in the Nightmare Mountain Range, such as rare ores for refining Heaven Grade Soldiers. Shu Chan could ask her father to try to help Long Yu break into the Heavenly Mandate Island's Heavenly Prison Thunderpool to find his father, Long Zitian. Now, all of you should leave immediately. The Nightmare Mountain Range isn't close, and it would take at least half a month to get there by flying. As Shu Chan spoke, she took out a small spirit boat from her bosom. With a thought, she immediately enlarged it. This Azura spirit boat is a treasure that I recently obtained. I'll leave it to you. Remember to come back in 3 months. Yes, Princess. Little fatty Rin Ping Fan grinned as he took the Azura spirit ship with a wretched expression and said, "What a great ship! An Azura spirit ship, a heaven-grade upper-tier combat weapon. You only need to use a small amount of Xian Qi to drive it, and it can fly a few times faster than a Divine Ability Secret Realm Martial Cultivator. In this way, you should be able to reach the Nightmare Mountain Range in 3 days." Shu Chan smiled slightly. Long Yu, cultivate well. In 3 months, I still need you to accompany me to participate in the Shura selection. Yes. Long Yu nodded. The Shura selection should be a great selection that was held once every 20 years. He didn't know what he would encounter, but it didn't make him too confused. When the time came, Shu-chan would tell him. During this time, all he needed to do was to quickly improve his cultivation. It would be best if he could go through 2 inner tribulations within the next 3 months and directly step into the heavenly beginning realm. Long Yu still had the Rinhuan Golden Elixir to increase the spiritual chi of heaven and earth needed to improve his cultivation, so there was no need to worry. As long as he could go through the remaining 2 inner tribulations, he could directly step into the heavenly beginning realm. At that time, with all the skills that Long Yu had now, he wouldn't be afraid of most divine tribulation realm martial cultivators. Little brother Long, let's go. Shu-chan left after explaining these matters. Little fatty Ren Pingfan activated the Azura spirit boat and invited Long Yu to board. Along the way, Ren Pingfan told Long Yu some specific things, such as the army in the Nightmare Mountain Range, the mining team, and the situation in the neighboring Ghost Evil Prefecture. The Azura spirit boat was indeed 3 to 4 times faster than a martial cultivator in the Divine Ability Secret Realm. It allowed Long Yu to thoroughly experience what it felt like to be as fast as lightning. Sitting in this small Azura spirit boat and watching the clouds recede outside the spirit boat, it was quite a fascinating experience. When could a martial cultivator reach this speed by flying in the air? That would be awesome. It would take 3 days to reach the Nightmare Mountain Range. During this time, Long Yu had a good understanding of the situation in the Nightmare Mountain Range. The mines in the Nightmare Mountain Range were extremely precious. Not only was the Azura Prefecture and the Ghost Evil Prefecture fighting over them, but even the Tianqin dynasty would send envoys over every year to take away some rare and precious mines. Because it was under the rule of the Tianqin dynasty, the Azura Prefecture had no choice but to hand over those rare and precious mines. Apart from that, the Azura Prefecture could also obtain a considerable amount of mines from the Nightmare Mountain Range every year. The army commander stationed in the Nightmare Mountain Range was an old general. He was already over 100 years old and had already entered the 7 Divine Abilities Secret Realm. He was just 1 step away from the Emperor Path Secret Realm. Unfortunately, this step wasn't something he could take as he wished. He had been stuck at the old general's throat for more than 20 years. The old general was the Azura Prefecture's trusted subordinate. His name was Hui Yuan Bai, and he had always doted on the princess, Shu-chan. This time, the 2 of them had brought Shu-chan's letter to the Nightmare Mountain Range to conceal their identities. Hui Yuan Bai would naturally help. There are still frequent battles in the Nightmare Mountain Range, and the opponents are naturally the cultivators of the Ghost Evil Prefecture. Little fatty Ren Pingfan continued. The martial skills, martial techniques, and laws of the heavens and earth that the cultivators of the Ghost Evil County practice are quite strange, making them difficult to deal with. If we were to bump into them, we should call for reinforcements as soon as possible. Long Yu nodded. The Ghost Evil Prefecture was a force on the same level as the Azura Prefecture. If Long Yu met the cultivators of the Ghost Evil Prefecture alone, he naturally wouldn't choose to fight them head-on. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Long Yu had no understanding of the cultivators of the Ghost Evil Prefecture, so it would be unwise to act rashly. Now, the Nightmare Mountain Range that the Azura Prefecture belongs to is divided into 3 mining areas: the Sun Mining Area, the Moon Mining Area, and the Star Mining Area. According to the ranking of Sun, Moon, and Star, the Sun Mining Area is most likely to have rare and precious ores, while the Star Mining Area usually produces inferior ores. Ren Pingfan said, "The princess has arranged for you to go to the Sun Mining Area. You can pay more attention to the Sun Mining Area. If you can find some precious ores, you can give them to the princess. The princess will be very happy." Long Yu was not interested in ores. However, the people of the Azura County seemed to be very interested in the ores produced by the Devil Nightmare Mountain Range. Long Yu thought that if he could obtain enough ores, he might be able to attract the attention of the Azura Duke and obtain a favorable impression. Although Long Yu had come to the outside world, he was still thinking about the people on the Heavenly Mandate Island, as well as Long Zaiqian, who had entered the Heaven Prison Thunder Pool more than 20 years ago. Shu Chan had said that the cultivators of the secret realm did not dare to enter the Heaven Prison Thunder Pool easily. So if Long Yu wanted to know the situation in the Heaven Prison Thunder Pool quickly, he could only rely on Shu Chan's father. Although Long Yu had not met the Azura Prefecture's prince, from what Shu Chan had said, Long Yu could feel that the Azura Prefecture's prince was not an unreasonable person. He should be relatively easy to talk to. The Azura spirit boat flew across the sky at an extremely fast speed. Along the way, Long Yu saw many floating islands similar to the Heavenly Mandate Island from afar. He did not know what kind of power made these islands float in the sky for so long. Every floating island was about the same size as the Heavenly Mandate Island. They had existed in the sky since ancient times and were surrounded by thousands of layers of heavenly spirit. Once martial arts practitioners who had not entered the secret realm approached them, they would be easily swept away by the heavenly spirit whirlpool, leaving nothing behind. Inside these floating islands was a world of martial arts like the Heavenly Mandate continent. One could imagine how vast the territory of the Azura Prefecture was. Now that Long Yu had entered the human tribulation realm, he could travel hundreds of feet in an instant. However, if he wanted to travel across the entire Azura Prefecture, it would take him at least a month. Without something like the Azura Spirit Boat, it would take Long Yu 1 or 2 months to go back and forth from the Nightmare Mountain range. Don't the martial arts practitioners on these floating islands know about the existence of the Azura Prefecture outside? Long Yu watched as he passed by another floating island. Even though it was hundreds of thousands of feet away, he could still clearly feel the magnificence of the island. He could not help but ask Rin Ping Fan. Probably. Rin Ping Fan squinted his eyes and said, I grew up in the Azura Valley. When I showed my talent in martial arts, I was taken in as a subordinate by the commandery princess, so I have never been to these islands. It is said that the martial arts practitioners on these floating islands do not have enough cultivation resources. Very few of them can enter the secret realm. Indeed, Long Yu agreed with him and said, I came from one of the floating islands. Haha, no wonder. Rin Ping Fan laughed and said, Little brother Long, you are very talented, but you are still too weak to enter the human tribulation realm at such a young age. I was a little surprised that you came from these islands. Without enough cultivation resources, no matter how talented you are, it is useless. Alas. Speaking of this, Rin Ping Fan's expression was a little gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. Long Yu paid a little attention, but he did not ask anything. After all, everyone had their own difficulties, and few people wanted others to know about them. If Long Yu asked, it would not be nice. As the Azura Spirit Boat traveled as fast as lightning, it cut through the sky unimpeded all the way. Finally, after 3 days, it approached a boundless mountain range. Chapter 466. The Azura Spirit Vessel was immediately discovered as soon as it reached the skies above the Nightmare Mountains. A group of 7 Sky Realm Martial Cultivators flew over and blocked their path. Who are you? Tell us your names. The leader of the Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivators wore a metal helmet that shone with a metallic luster. His eyes were extremely sharp. He was the leader of the Army's patrol squad stationed at the Nightmare Mountains. One could say that he was the eyes and ears of the army. Naturally, he was extremely wary of outsiders. This is the token and letter of the Azura County Lord. Let us pass and meet General Hua. Little fatty Rin Ping Fan stopped the Azura Spirit Vessel and leaped out. He then showed the token that belonged to the Azura County Lord. The 7 patrol squad members were shocked and quickly let them pass. Although the Nightmare Mountains were very far from Azura Valley, they were still very familiar with the Azura County Lord. After all, she was very likely to be the next ruler of the entire Azura Prefecture. Why are you all wearing masks? The leader of the Heavenly Tribulation Realm Squad glanced at Long Yu and Rin Ping Fan, still on his guard. Long Yu was nothing to be afraid of. The main problem was that Rin Ping Fan was a 2-path divinity realm expert. Even in the entire army of the Nightmare Mountains, such experts were rare. The county lord has instructed that I must wear it. Rin Ping Fan replied directly. With a wave of his hand, he put away the Azura spirit vessel and turned it into a small boat. Rin Ping Fan held it in his hand like a model. Mountain Ghost, the county lord said that it would be safer for you to keep this. Rin Ping Fan tossed the shrunken Azura spirit vessel to Long Yu. Long Yu caught it and smirked. He then activated the dragon scale of the 9 underworlds and absorbed it into the 7th floor of the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda. Placing the Azura spirit vessel in the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda was indeed the safest place. Although the leader of the patrol squad was still a little doubtful, he didn't ask any questions. In his opinion, although the two were both wearing masks, they probably didn't have any ill intentions since they requested to meet General Hua. Moreover, the Azura County Lord's token couldn't be forged. Follow me. I'll inform the general first. The leader of the patrol squad descended from the clouds with the 2 men and quickly descended into a valley of a mountain range. An army of hundreds of thousands of soldiers was stationed in the valley, all under the command of General Hui Yuanbai. It could be said to be one of the strongest forces in Shura Prefecture. As a 7 Daos divinity realm expert, the Yuanbai was qualified to rule the Shura Prefecture. Moreover, he was deeply trusted by the Shura Prefecture king, which was why he was appointed as the general of the Nightmare Legion to fight against the neighboring Ghost Evil Prefecture. Because of the Nightmare Legion's protection, half of the Nightmare Mountain range was occupied by the Shura County. Otherwise, the entire Nightmare Mountain range would have been taken by the Ghost Evil County. This place was rich in resources. If it wasn't for the Nightmare Legion being too hard to deal with, the Ghost Evil County would have already conquered it and occupied it. At the same time, the Azura Prefecture's Nightmare Army was also planning to occupy the entire Nightmare Mountains. However, the Ghost Prefecture was also keeping a close eye on it, so Hui Yuanbai didn't have any chance to make a move. Long Yu glanced over and saw that the entire mountain range was filled with camps. The entire Nightmare Legion's martial cultivators lived in this vast stretch of mountain range. They were in charge of protecting the Nightmare Mountain range from the Ghost Evil County's martial cultivators. The Azura Prefecture is simply too powerful. Just the Nightmare Legion that guards the Nightmare Mountain range has at least 100 divine ability realm experts. The squad leaders of the patrol teams are all Heavenly Tribulation realm martial cultivators. Long Yu sighed. Such an army would be more than enough to take over the entire Heavenly Mandate Island. There wouldn't even be a need for the Mystery Realm experts. Of course, floating islands like the Heavenly Mandate Island were all part of the Shura Commandery. Many martial arts geniuses had emerged from these floating islands and made great contributions to the Shura Commandery. Following the patrol team, Long Yu and Rin Pingfan arrived at a rather simple and crude camp in the mountains. Although it was simple and crude, the various supplies in the camp were arranged in a very orderly manner, giving people a refreshing feeling when they looked at it. Greetings, General. The princess men are here to see you. The patrol squad leader stood at the entrance of the camp and shouted, "Let them in." A middle-aged man's voice came from a camp. There was a hint of surprise in his voice. Obviously, he didn't expect the princess to send someone to see him. "You two go in." The patrol squad leader heaved a sigh of relief. There wouldn't be any accidents now that they were here. Even if a guy with 2 mystery realms wanted to do something bad, he wouldn't be a match for General Hui Yuanbai, who had 7 mystery realms. Thank you for your hard work, brother. When we settle down, I'll have a drink with you." Rin Ping Fan smiled at the patrol squad leader. You flatter me. The patrol captain was immediately overwhelmed by the favor. The person he was talking to was a 2-path divinity realm powerhouse. How would he dare to drink with him? Little did he know that the little fatty was speaking the truth. "I'm serious. What's your name?" "I'm Lei Fu." The patrol squad leader hurriedly replied. I'll remember. I'll go in to see the general first." After the little fatty finished speaking, he stepped into the camp with Long Yu. When Long Yu saw this scene from the side, he knew that this little fatty was very scheming. The reason why he wanted to invite the patrol captain Lei Fu for a drink was because he wanted to find out the situation of the entire Nightmare Mountain range and the Nightmare Legion as soon as possible. After all, the little fatty was going to be the Nightmare Legion's guest military advisor. If he didn't understand the situation, wouldn't he be easily plotted against? There were so many people in the Nightmare Legion. Apart from General Hui Yuanbai, there were also 4 deputies. It was impossible for them to be as harmonious as they looked on the surface. It wouldn't be fun if he accidentally tripped. Ren Pingfan couldn't go wrong being a little more careful. After entering the camp, Long Yu and Ren Pingfan took off their masks. Princess Shu Chan had said that there was no need to hide their identities in front of General Hui Yuanbai. On the contrary, they had to reveal their true identities. One must know that General Hui Yuanbai was in charge of the entire Nightmare Mountains. There was no way he would allow an unknown person to sneak in, much less allow an unknown person to become a guest military advisor. It would be bad if a spy were to sneak in. Although Shu Chan had a token and a handwritten letter, it might not be enough for Hui Yuanbai to completely trust her. It was better to be safe. The two stepped into a wooden hut in the camp. The first thing they saw was a refining platform that was burning with flames, roasting many metal ores on it. A refining platform was a tool used to forge combat weapons, similar to an alchemy furnace. Beside this refining platform, there was a bare-chested middle-aged man. He was wielding a hammer that flickered with lightning as he hammered the metal ores on the refining platform. I didn't expect General Hua to be a weapon refiner. Ren Pingfan couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Haha, I'm getting old. It's hard to advance on the path of martial arts, so I decided to try forging some combat weapons for fun. The middle-aged man laughed heartily. He raised his head and glanced at Long Yu and Ren Pingfan, his gaze lingering on Long Yu for a longer time. You're the princess, men? General Hui Yuanbai asked. That's right. This is the princess' handwritten letter. Please take a look. Ren Pingfan took out Shu Chan's letter and handed it over. General Hui Yuanbai temporarily stopped forging combat weapons and took the letter. He quickly finished reading the contents and roughly understood the situation. Kid, your name is Long Yu, right? After reading the letter, Yuanbai walked over with a smile and extended his hand to Long Yu in a friendly manner. Not bad. Long Yu's eyes lit up. General Hui Yuanbai seemed to be easy to get along with. He extended his hand and shook hands with Hui Yuanbai before letting go. In the process, Hui Yuanbai took a few more glances at Long Yu, as if sensing some special power in Long Yu's body. However, he didn't say anything. Ren Pingfan, to be able to step into the double Dao divinity realm at such a young age, you're no ordinary man. Hui Yuanbai turned his head and extended his hand to the little fatty with a smile. Hee, I've admired you for a long time. Now that I can finally meet you, I fulfill my childhood wish. The little fatty chuckled and extended his hand as well. One of you is using the alias Gon Bufon and wants to be a guest advisor in the Nightmare Legion. The other is using the alias Shan Gui and wants to join the mining team. How about this? You'll stay in my camp for the night, and I'll arrange for you to take up your post tomorrow. Hui Yuanbai smiled with an extremely amiable expression. My camp can gather a lot of heaven and earth spirit chi at night. It'll be beneficial for your cultivation. Long Yu had noticed this the moment he entered. The entire camp seemed to have been set up with some sort of formation that could gather more heaven and earth spirit chi. That way, not only would it be convenient for people to cultivate, it would also be convenient for Hui Yuanbai to forge combat weapons. We'll be troubling you then, General. The two of them cupped their fists and thanked him. Then it was sunset. Under the dark red glow of the setting sun, the entire Nightmare Mountains seemed to be filled with boundless ghost chi, causing the atmosphere of the entire mountain range to turn somewhat sinister. As an old general, Hui Yuanbai was indeed easy to talk to and had a rather amiable personality. He actually hosted a banquet for Long Yu and Ren Pingfan and personally ate with them. Of course, there were only 3 of them at the banquet. After all, it wasn't convenient for others to know about Long Yu and Ren Pingfan's identities. Young friend Long Yu, you're only a human tribulation realm right now. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for the princess to arrange for you to go to the sun mining area. During the banquet, Hui Yuan Bai frowned slightly, but there was a hint of shrewdness in his eyes. General, I don't know about that. I'll just follow the princess's arrangements. Long Yu said casually. The mining teams in the sun mining area are all at the Empyrean realm and Heavenly realm. You'll probably be bullied by them if you're sent there without any status. Hui Yuan Bai smiled with interest. Is the princess trying to train you, or is there something special about you that allows you to deal with Heavenly realm fellows? Chapter 467. Hui Yuanbai knew that Long Yu was smart, but he couldn't get anything out of him. Thus, he didn't ask further and just ate and drank with the two. After the meal, Hui Yuanbai arranged a place for the two to stay, and Long Yu and Rin Ping Fan took their leave. What do you think, little brother Long? What do you think of General Hua? Rin Ping Fan asked Long Yu with a hint of admiration in his eyes. A good general. Long Yu didn't say much. He just smiled and said, That's not all. When I was born, General Hua was already the commander of the Nightmare Legion. That year, he slaughtered the invaders from the Ghost Evil County and killed tens of thousands of cultivators from the Ghost Evil County in the Nightmare Mountain Range. It seemed that the little fatty had a good impression of Hui Yuan Bai. Hui Yuan Bai should be a powerful general who was loyal to the Shura Prefecture. Otherwise, the Shura Prefecture king wouldn't have entrusted the important task of protecting the Nightmare Mountains to him. After parting with Hui Yuan Bai, the night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, a few Sky Realm cultivators came to arrange a place for Long Yu and Rin Ping Fan. The two finally had a part. Before leaving, the little fatty pulled Long Yu's arm and said, Little brother Long, after I take office, I'll send people to keep an eye on you. If there's any danger, I'll know very soon. Just try your best to hold on. Of course, there shouldn't be too much danger in the Nightmare Mountains. The people from the Ghost Prefecture seem to be very quiet recently. All right, thank you, Brother Fatty. Long Yu said with a smile. He didn't call the other person by his name and just called him Brother Fatty. It was obvious that the little fatty liked to call him that. Rin Ping Fan was taken away, so he naturally had to prepare to take up the position of guest advisor. Although it was just a title, he would still have some authority. It wouldn't be a problem to arrange 1 or 2 people to keep an eye on Long Yu. As for Long Yu, he was wearing a ghost face mask, following a celestial realm martial cultivator away from the mountaintop. They flew in the Nightmare Mountain Range for thousands of zhong before arriving at the foot of another mountain. Raising his head and looking at the mountain peak, Long Yu could feel that the mountain peak was faintly filled with even denser spiritual energy of the heavens and earth. At the top of the mountain peak, he could see quite a few martial cultivators digging for something. Brother Hill Ghost, this is the sun mining area. According to the general's orders, I brought you here. Take the general's orders and go up the mountain to find the vulture mining team and join them. The guide said to Long Yu and handed an envelope to Long Yu. It was General Hua Yuanbai's handwritten order. Thank you. Long Yu nodded at the man, then turned around and walked up the mountain peak. After that, the guide left on his own. As Long Yu walked up the mountain, he discovered that there were almost no paths on this mountain. Many of the miners had flown up, and every mining team had their own area of activity. They couldn't wander around randomly. Long Yu walked up the mountain. If they took the wrong path, they might face a conflict. Although they were all martial cultivators of Azura County, there would be differences of interests and conflicts wherever there were people. If they took the wrong path, there was a high chance that a fight would break out. Moreover, Hui Yuanbai's army would not care about such a fight. Every mining team only needed to hand over half of their harvest to the core that Hui Yuanbai was in. As for the other half, they could use it for their own use or trade it for things they needed, such as pills, combat weapons, and so on. The sun mining area, moon mining area, and star mining area were all free mining areas. In other words, the miners here were all martial cultivators and adventurers from all over Azura County. As for the Nightmare Corps led by Hua Yuanbai, they naturally had their own mining area. Ordinary people were not qualified to enter. In the army's mining area, the things produced were naturally much better. However, recently, in the sun mining area that Long Yu had come to, there were quite a few good things produced. The value was not cheap, causing the number of Jianghu martial cultivators to increase by a lot. Of course, these new martial cultivators had to go through Hui Yuanbai's subordinates. Otherwise, if they were allowed to wander around freely, it would not be good for them to cause bloodshed everywhere. Although Hui Yuanbai did not stop the competition, he did not want vicious competition between martial cultivators. Long Yu took to the air with General Yuanbai's handwritten decree in his hand. Soon, he arrived at a platform on the side of the mountain. At a glance, he could see many people sitting on the platform, resting and chatting with each other. As soon as they saw Long Yu flying toward the platform, the group looked at him warily. After all, Long Yu's intentions were unknown, and the most suspicious thing was that he was wearing a mask. Seeing that Long Yu was flying closer, the leader of the group, a burly man wearing a golden pendant, stood up and looked at Long Yu like a ruffian. "Where are you from? What are you doing here?" "My name is Shan Gue. The general arranged for me to come here." Long Yu said directly. "What did I hear? Haha, which general are you talking about?" The burly man laughed as if he had just heard a joke. "General Hua, of course." As he spoke, Long Yu landed in front of the burly man and sized him up. He realized that the burly man was a Tianhua realm martial cultivator with a strong aura. "Kid, do you know who we are? How dare you spout nonsense here?" Before the burly man could speak, a thin and sharp-tongued martial cultivator next to him said sarcastically, "You are only in the human tribulation realm. How could you possibly meet General Hua? Moreover, this is the sun mining area." The burly man then said in a deep voice, "Sir, maybe you have come to the wrong place?" When he said this, the burly man's eyes flashed with hostility. Obviously, he did not welcome Long Yu at all. "See for yourself." Long Yu raised his hand and threw General Hui Yuanbai's handwritten decree out. The burly man was afraid that it might be some kind of hidden weapon. He carefully gathered his chi and caught the envelope. When he found that it was not a hidden weapon, he opened the envelope. With just a glance, the burly man's expression changed slightly. "General Hu really arranged for me to come here. What bad luck. There are too many good things these days. Even the trash of the human realm can come to the sun mining area." The burly man cursed. "Mountain ghost, is it? Since the general personally arranged for you to come here, then follow our vulture squad. But let me tell you in advance, don't think that you can be lazy just because the general personally arranged for you. I will naturally do what I have to do." Long Yu said lightly and stepped forward, ready to rest for a while on the mountain platform. He looked around and found that there were a total of 15 people on the mountain platform, except for him. Without exception, they were all martial cultivators of the heaven realm. These 15 people were now resting on the mountain platform. Behind the platform, there was a mountain wall with a big hole dug out. It seemed that this was the place where the vulture squad mined. "Boy, is this the first time you have come to the Nightmare Mountains?" A rather kind-looking middle-aged man walked up to Long Yu with a smile and said, "Our team is about to start work. It just so happens that we are short of one person. Come in with us." "Okay." Long Yu thought for a moment and nodded. He didn't know how the ores were mined here, so it was necessary to follow a team. Since the middle-aged man looked kind, he would follow him. "Brothers, let's go." The middle-aged man turned around and called out. For people stood up with strange smiles on their faces and came to his side. Including Long Yu, there was a total of 6 people as they walked into the mine. "Brother, you're called Mountain Ghost? Why are you wearing a mask? Do you have any enemies?" The middle-aged man walked beside Long Yu, and as he walked, he chuckled and said, "You don't have to worry here. No one would dare to openly seek revenge under General Hua's command, unless there's a conflict over mining." Long Yu glanced at him. He felt that although the man was kind, his words seemed to be a little tentative. He became a little wary. Long Yu thought to himself that he was wearing a mask to prevent the spies in Azura Valley from spreading the news that he was still alive. It wasn't to prevent people from seeking revenge. However, he naturally couldn't tell this kind of person. "My name is Deng Yuan." The middle-aged man smiled and introduced himself. Then, he said, "When you start work later, remember to use your strongest strength. The mountains in the mining area are extremely hard. Even heavenly realm martial cultivators like us have to spend 70 to 80% of our strength to barely blast open the mountains and dig in bit by bit. It's really not a good thing that you have been assigned to the mining area. You might be busy for a few months without any results." "Yes, I will try later." Long Yu nodded. Deng Yuan's words surprised Long Yu. He didn't expect the mountains to be so hard that even heavenly realm martial cultivators could barely blast open them. However, Long Yu wasn't worried that he wouldn't gain anything. After all, his true strength had definitely surpassed the human tribulation realm. He might even have reached the heavenly tribulation realm. If it was a life-and-death battle, even a heavenly tribulation realm expert might not be Long Yu's match. The spiritual energy in this mine is so thick. It seems that Shu Chan arranged for me to come here so that I can cultivate quickly. Long Yu sensed the aura in the mine. He felt that the spiritual energy in the mine was much thicker than the outside world. If he cultivated here all year round, his cultivation speed would increase by a lot. Unfortunately, the main purpose of most martial cultivators in the Nightmare Mountain range wasn't to cultivate, but to mine and search for treasures. The entire mine was crooked. Most of the walls were made of hard boulders, but a small part of them had shining gray metal. The gray metal was harder than the boulders and had no value. Basically, one could give up on digging until the gray metal appeared. It was too difficult for a heavenly realm martial cultivator to blast open the gray metal. "Okay, that's it. Let's get to work." The middle-aged man, Deng Yuni, raised his hand and gestured for everyone to stop here. Then, he pointed to a fork in the passage ahead. The fork led to a cave that had just been excavated. Their task was to extend this cave further and see if they could dig up any rare treasures along the way. Long Yu keenly noticed that when Deng Yuan glanced at him, there seemed to be some cunning hidden in his eyes. Chapter 468. Apart from Long Yu, the other 5 martial cultivators in the mine, including Deng Yuan, were all at the heavenly origin stage. The 5 of them used their own techniques and condensed the power of the laws of heaven and earth they had comprehended into a beam, which blasted at the fork in the cave ahead. Very soon, they drilled out several small holes. Long Yu could sense the strength of the 5 heavenly origin martial cultivators. Under normal circumstances, a casual blow from them would be able to blast a mountain apart. But now, only a few finger-sized holes had been blasted into the Nightmare Mountain Range's cavern. One could imagine what kind of existence the entire Nightmare Mountains was made up of. Everything in the world has different degrees of hardness. The material of the Nightmare Mountain Range is nothing. The material of my Dragon Skeleton Tower is the real deal. Only an Emperor Path Secret Stage expert can cause a crack to appear on it. As Long Yu thought to himself, he displayed the power of the Law of Moon he had comprehended and tried to condense it into a beam, which he blasted at the wall of the cave ahead. The penetrative power of condensing a beam would naturally be stronger. However, Long Yu's attack did not leave a single mark on the wall of the cave. This caused Long Yu to squint his eyes. The sturdiness of this cave had truly exceeded his expectations. Naturally, Deng Yuan and the other 4 noticed his situation. "TCH, I thought the guy personally sent by the general would have some special ability. I didn't expect him to not even leave a mark on the wall. Then why do we still need this kid? Hurry up and tell him to scram. Otherwise, if we dig up something, won't we have to give him a share?" "That's right. Deng Yuan, you're our team leader. Hurry up and tell this kid to scram." A few of them started cursing, and their gazes towards Long Yu were filled with ill intent. Deng Yuan looked at Long Yu and shook his head. "Brother Mountain Ghost, it's not that I'm sorry, but your strength is just too. I'll try again. I didn't use my full strength just now." Long Yu narrowed his eyes and insisted. He could understand their feelings. After all, no one would be willing to bring along a useless person to do something, especially when they had to give him a share of the harvest. Therefore, Long Yu said this, wanted to give another try. However, Those people were not prepared to give Long Yu this opportunity. You didn't use your full strength? Brat, are you an idiot? Who would go all out in mining? If you can only use your full strength to destroy this cave wall, how slow will your mining speed be? Let's go. Don't slow us down. How unlucky. Get out. Let the boss arrange for you to go to another team. Our team can't afford to carry a useless piece of trash like you. These words were a little rude. They didn't even give him the slightest chance, and this caused Long Yu to be rather displeased. Moreover, when he linked it to the trace of treachery Deng Yuan revealed earlier, it caused him to simply decide not to go with them, so as to avoid even more unpleasant things from occurring later. Then I'll go dig somewhere else. After saying that, Long Yu turned around and left. Ah, I'm dying of laughter. With your strength, you won't be able to dig anything out even if you dig for a lifetime. Ignore him. Let's do our own thing. If it was someone else, we'd be afraid that he would snatch away our food. This brat is so weak, he won't be able to dig anything out no matter how much we dig. Let him be. Those people did not make him stay, and they continued to mock Long Yu. Long Yu did not care at all. He turned around and walked toward another fork in the cave. Soon, the noise and mockery were left behind. Before turning around, Long Yu also noticed that Deng Yuan had a look of joy on his face, but he did not know what he was happy about. Logically speaking, there was no reason for this guy to be happy about Long Yu's departure, right? Long Yu became vigilant in his heart, and then he walked toward another fork in the cave. There were many forks in the entire mine, but there weren't many. Most of them had already dug through a large expanse of gray metal walls, and they were unable to move forward any further. So they had to constantly open up new paths. Long Yu walked along the fork in the cave for around 300 m before he arrived at the end, and he was faced with a gray metal wall that flickered with a gray sheen. This was an existence that was even harder than those enormous rock walls from before. Long Yu was just about to turn around and leave when he thought about it. Others were helpless against these gray metal walls, but it didn't mean that he couldn't. I have the Netherworld Dragon Blade. It just so happens that there's no one around right now. Why don't I try and see if the Netherworld Dragon Blade is able to break through these gray metal walls? Long Yu thought in his heart, and he made a decision. He held the pitch-black Netherworld Dragon Blade in his hand, and the blade flickered with a strange and ghastly aura. He held the Netherworld Dragon Blade and activated the power of the Yu, divine character, he had comprehended. He focused on the blade, and then he stabbed it towards the gray metal wall in front of him. Out of Long Yu's expectations, the incredibly hard gray metal wall was instantly pierced through by the Netherworld Dragon Blade. It must be known that these gray metal walls were even harder than the enormous rock walls. Just the enormous rock walls alone were something that even Heavenly Realm martial practitioners would find extremely difficult to break through, let alone these gray metal walls. From the fact that once they dug through the entire gray metal wall, they would give up on this entire path. It could be seen that even Heavenly Realm experts would be helpless against these gray metal walls. However, with the Netherworld Dragon Blade in his hand, and the Yu divine character condensed in it, Long Yu was able to pierce through it in an instant. Haha! Amazing, as expected of an ancient war weapon. Long Yu's eyes lit up, and he immediately became excited. If other Heavenly Realm martial practitioners could dig out quite a lot of good stuff just by digging slowly like that, wouldn't Long Yu be able to blast open a path easily with the Netherworld Dragon Blade? His mining speed was more than 100 times, or even 1,000 times faster than other martial practitioners. Raising his martial realm was currently Long Yu's main goal. However, the Heart's Tribulation had yet to arrive, so all Long Yu could do was prepare for it while improving his strength in other areas. If he could dig out some good stuff in the Nightmare Mountain range and exchange it for some pills, war weapons, or martial techniques, it would be a good thing for Long Yu too. Immediately, he held the Netherworld Dragon Blade and continued to stab the gray metal wall. After just a few stabs, he had already dug out a large piece of gray metal. Sensing that there was no spiritual chi in it, he directly threw it into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. The gray metal was extremely hard. If others knew that he could cut it like mud, it would probably attract unnecessary trouble. Hence, he had to be careful and not throw the gray metal around. After a few more stabs, Long Yu suddenly felt an extremely dense spiritual chi coming from behind the gray metal wall. It was more than 10 times denser than the other places in the mine. Is there something good here? Long Yu was overjoyed and then worked even harder. He directly condensed the Een character and used the Netherworld Dragon Blade to cut through an extremely thick gray metal wall. Then, he reached out and dug out a green diamond embedded in the gray metal. Long Yu used the Netherworld Dragon Blade to carefully remove the gray metal, and very soon, a green diamond was revealed. It gave off a dense, spiritual chi that Long Yu had never seen before. What level of treasure is this? Such dense spiritual chi will probably attract the attention of others. Long Yu immediately hid it in the space of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. The ancient Dragon Bone Tower was an independent space. No one would be able to sense what was hidden in it. Long Yu suddenly recalled that there had been rumors recently that people were constantly digging out a treasure called the Green Diamond in the Nightmare Mountains. Even if it was only the size of a fingernail, it could at least double the hardness of a battle weapon when added to it during the forging process, making it less vulnerable to damage. If the cyan gemstone that Long Yu had obtained was that kind of cyan gemstone, then it would be the size of a fist. Once word got out, countless people would definitely go crazy. I'm afraid that even experts in the mystical realm would not be able to quickly cut through this gray metal wall. It's all thanks to a sharp weapon like the Netherworld Dragon Blade for me. Long Yu's eyes shone brightly. He could not help but look forward to it. If he could cultivate a martial technique for assassination and sneak attacks, how powerful would it be when paired with the Netherworld Dragon Blade? When he returned, Long Yu could consider exchanging his gains for such a martial technique, but he did not know if he would be able to find what he was looking for. Long Yu shook his head and did not think too much about it for now. What he needed to do now was to dig out as many treasures from the wall as possible. No one would have any designs on the gray metal wall, and this was also the reason why Long Yu was able to take advantage of it. The Netherworld Dragon Blade gave off a deep and strange luster as Long Yu stabbed it into the gray metal wall. Soon, a large piece of gray metal was dug out and thrown into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. At the same time, he also obtained 4 green diamonds the size of a fist, which he kept in his bag. However, at this moment, when he dug out another finger-sized green diamond and was about to put it into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, he suddenly heard chaotic footsteps behind him. It's a green diamond. It's really a green diamond. Damn it, we've finally hit the jackpot. Ha-ha. How did this kid manage to get it? It's really amazing, but we've benefited from it. A few extremely excited voices reached Long Yu's ears. Long Yu turned his body to look and saw that it was Deng Yuan's team of 5. Perhaps they were worried about Long Yu, or perhaps they had sensed some spiritual chi from the green diamond, so they had run over. Chapter 469. Long Yu had already expected them to come over to take a look, but he didn't expect them to arrive so quickly, or even see the cyan edge diamond in his hand. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. He had already obtained 5 fist-sized cyan edge diamonds, so it didn't matter if he gave the thumb-sized one in his hand to them. After all, this place was the territory of the Vulture Squad. Kid, hand over the diamond. A treasure like this isn't something someone like you should have. A heavenly origin martial cultivator with a hooked nose immediately glared at Long Yu and said sinisterly, "This is the territory of our Vulture Squad. The green edge gemstone found here naturally belongs to our Vulture Squad." Another person looked at Long Yu with greed flickering in his eyes. Here, without any hesitation, Long Yu tossed the cyan edge diamond in his hand to the kind-looking middle-aged man, Deng Yuan. Deng Yuan was slightly stunned. He could no longer hold back the joy on his face when he felt the dense spiritual chi from the cyan edge diamond. There must be something fishy about this kid being so obedient. Who knew that the hook-nosed martial cultivator still had a sinister look on his face as he said, "Boss Deng, I'm afraid this kid has more than 1 green edge diamond. We can't just let him get away with it." "That's right," Deng Yuan said in a low voice. He looked at Long Yu and said, Brother Hill Ghost, please hand over everything you've found. Otherwise, you'll be the enemy of our vulture squad. Long Yu was infuriated when he heard this. Then why don't you tell me what else I have on me? The dagger in your hand isn't an ordinary item, right? It's a waste in your hands. Why don't you hand it over to us? We'll be able to dig out more treasures. The hooked-nosed martial cultivator's eyes were extremely cunning. He immediately set his sights on the nether void dragon dagger in Long Yu's hand. Are your vulture squad bandits? Long Yu sneered. I've just obtained this cyan edge diamond, and I've already handed it over to you. Yet you still want to snatch my battle weapon? Do you have any shame? The other party's behavior was indeed too much. Even if Long Yu didn't think of any conflict, he couldn't tolerate it anymore. Initially, he had handed over the cyan edge diamond, because this place was the territory of the Bald Eagle Squad. However, he had not expected the other party to be so insatiable and set their sights on his combat weapon. Cut the crap, brat. The hook-nosed martial cultivator's lips curled up as he said viciously, Here, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. With the 5 of us surrounding you, do you think you can survive? Either hand over everything on you or die. Actually, we don't have to waste our breath on him. Deng Yuan suddenly spoke at this time, a cunning look flashing in his eyes, completely different from his previous amiable image. This person was personally assigned to our team by the general, so he must have some treasures on him. Let's just kill him and be done with it. But if the general asks about it personally, how should we explain it? Someone said with a guilty conscience. This person was extremely disobedient. He ran around in the mine and was crushed to death by the collapse of the mine. Even his bones were buried. Deng Yuan said viciously, If that's the case, even if the general asks about it personally, nothing will happen to us. This brat was assigned to us by the general, but he wasn't sent here, nor did he give us any instructions. It's obvious that he isn't someone important. Killing him won't cause any consequences. The hook-nosed martial cultivator licked his lips. Furthermore, we can say that we never saw this person, and we can push the blame away. After all, no one came here with this brat. You're right. Deng Yuan nodded his head. Then, the 5 of them looked at Long Yu with murderous gazes. Are you guys done? Long Yu said calmly as he glanced at the 5 of them, especially the leader, Deng Yuan. At first, he thought that this guy was quite kind, but he didn't expect that it was all an act. He was actually such a sinister, cunning, and greedy person. Sensing the murderous intent from the 5 people, Long Yu immediately decided to make the first move and kill all 5 of them. In Long Yu's eyes, Heavenly Origin martial cultivators weren't considered experts. Deng Yuan seemed to want to say something, but his vision suddenly blurred. Long Yu's figure suddenly disappeared, followed by a gust of cold wind, as if something was attacking him. As a Heavenly Origin martial cultivator, Deng Yuan was extremely experienced in combat. At this moment, he immediately realized that it was Long Yu who had launched a sneak attack on them. He immediately sneered. You overestimate yourself. How dare you come to the Sun Mine with a mere human tribulation realm cultivation? You can't blame others even if you die. Kill! Deng Yuan harumphed coldly and raised his hand. A wave of fiery energy from the heavenly steel laws burst out, forming a violent defensive wall of fire in an attempt to block Long Yu's sneak attack. Long Yu had used the hidden divine rune, so these people couldn't find him at all. However, seeing that Deng Yuan had executed a defensive technique, Long Yu dodged him. Wielding the nether void dragon blade, he directly pierced towards the hook-nosed martial cultivator beside him. The hook-nosed martial cultivator reacted extremely quickly. With a wave of his hand, he formed a wall of earth in front of him. Kill! Long Yu wasn't afraid of the earth wall. With a light stab of the nether dragon blade, the earth wall collapsed with a loud bang, along with the power of the nether divine rune. Immediately after, 2 martial skills, Awakening Samsara and Lying Drunk Yellow Springs, were condensed on Long Yu's fist. The netherworld chi instantly exploded and shot towards the hook-nosed martial cultivator's face. The 2 were extremely close to each other, so the others didn't know how to help even if they wanted to. They were afraid that they would accidentally injure the hook-nosed martial cultivator, so they all retreated. One person is enough to deal with him, Ding Yuan said coldly. He wasn't worried about the hook-nosed martial cultivator's safety. However, in the next moment, the hook-nosed martial cultivator's martial cultivation was affected by the power of samsara and temporarily fell back to the human tribulation realm. Immediately after, the Yellow Springs spirit appeared and completely restrained him. The hook-nosed martial cultivator's expression changed. Just as he was about to call for help, the Nether Dragon blade had already swept over and pierced his chest, shattering his heart. One dead. If Long Yu didn't kill these people, they would kill him. He had no other choice. As for the consequences of killing them, Long Yu didn't have time to think about it. He couldn't be bothered to think about it. The strongest member of the Vulture team was only in the Heavenly Flower realm. If it was a one-on-one fight, Long Yu wasn't afraid at all. The hook-nosed martial cultivator's heart was shattered by Long Yu's blade. He fell backwards in disbelief and fell heavily on the ground of the mine, causing a cloud of dust to rise. Ding Yuan and the others' expressions changed when they saw this. Their originally calm expressions immediately turned grave. The hook-nosed martial cultivator was dead. In other words, the masked kid called Mountain Ghost definitely had the strength to kill heavenly origin martial cultivators like them. What should we do? Should we call for reinforcements? One of them said with a trembling voice. If he was Long Yu's target just now, he would most likely be the one dead. No need. Once we get rid of this kid, everything on him will be ours. If we call for reinforcements, it won't be our turn. Ding Yuan said with a gloomy expression, let's attack together. No matter how powerful this kid is, he's only in the human tribulation realm. As soon as he finished speaking, the four of them gathered the power of the laws of heaven and earth that they had comprehended and swept it towards Long Yu. Flames, ice spears, hurricanes, and boulders. For different types of power of laws immediately crushed towards Long Yu. The power of laws released by heavenly origin martial cultivators was several times stronger than Long Yu's. I can't dodge it. Reincarnation barrier. Long Yu's heart was extremely calm. The netherworld chi instantly condensed into a reincarnation barrier, protecting his entire body. In the next moment, the four types of power of laws descended and shattered the pitch-black, translucent reincarnation barrier. The reincarnation barrier was a defensive martial technique, but it only managed to block less than half of the power of the laws and rebounded it. The remaining half of the power landed heavily on Long Yu's body. It was 1 against 4. Not to mention, Long Yu had just killed a hook-nosed man. Facing the swift reactions of Ding Yuan and the others, Long Yu was simply unable to dodge. He could only take the blow. Lightning flashed all over his body as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The four types of power of laws were so powerful that Long Yu inevitably suffered internal injuries. However, his internal injuries weren't fatal because he had the torrential Thunder Tyrant body. Not only that, but the self-healing divine runes he comprehended were automatically released the moment he was injured, enveloping all the injured parts of his body. The internal injuries that he had suffered were actually recovering at an extremely fast speed. Long Yu relied on his powerful physical body and self-healing divine runes to forcefully withstand the all-out attack of the four heavenly origin martial cultivators. Dragon Sparrow Shadow kill. Before his internal injuries could fully heal, a pair of pitch-black Dragon Sparrow wings appeared on Long Yu's back. His body merged with the Dragon Sparrow Shadow, and his speed skyrocketed. He arrived in front of Ding Yuan in the blink of an eye. Siphon Divine Runes absorb. Long Yu's arm flickered with lightning as he forcibly penetrated the defensive firewall and pressed his hand on Ding Yuan's shoulder. The power of the Siphon Divine Runes instantly erupted. Ding Yuan had been resisting a small portion of the power that had been reflected by the reincarnation barrier. He had never expected that Long Yu would survive the combined attack of the four of them. Not only did he not die, but he even counterattacked at the fastest speed possible. Ding Yuan sneered when he sensed that Long Yu had broken through his defensive firewall with his bare hands. Is this kid courting death? However, when he felt Long Yu's hand on his shoulder, he felt a terrifying and strange suction force rapidly suck away the power in his body. Deng Yuan's expression changed again. Flame explosion, kill. Deng Yuan wasn't an expert. He hadn't even comprehended any divine runes. He had only comprehended one type of fire heaven and earth law. Facing Long Yu's siphon divine runes, the eruption of the fire heaven and earth law could not stop Long Yu's actions. Flame sprang up. Long Yu's entire body was bathed in raging flames. However, his entire body was covered in lightning, as well as a layer of self-healing divine runes wrapped around his body, allowing him to forcibly endure the damage of these flames. In the next moment, more than half of the power in Deng Yuan's body had been sucked away by the siphon divine runes. Then, Long Yu threw a punch that landed heavily on Deng Yuan's chest. Nether Dragon 9 explosions gained the upper hand with a show of strength. Chapter 470. With Deng Yuan's death, the cyan edge diamond in his hand returned to Long Yu's hand. Long Yu's entire body flickered with lightning. The power of the law of fire released by Deng Yuan finally dissipated along with his life force. Long Yu had been injured by the power of the law of fire when he attacked Deng Yuan, but he rapidly recovered with the power of the self-healing divine rune. Let's go. The remaining three immediately lost the courage to stay behind to deal with Long Yu when they saw Deng Yuan sent flying. They all rose into the air and flew towards the entrance of the mine. Trying to run? A cold glint flashed in Long Yu's eyes. These fellows had wanted to kill and rob, but Long Yu had killed two of them instead. How could it be so easy to escape now? The dragon sparrow wings on Long Yu's back unfurled, and the dragon sparrow shadow appeared, gradually fusing with him. His speed suddenly exploded, and in the blink of an eye, he had caught up to the Heaven Origins stage martial cultivator who was at the very back. Nether Void Dragon Blade, kill. Long Yu wielded the Void Nether Dragon Blade and stabbed at that person's back. I spiked. The person did not even turn his head. The power of the law of ice that he had comprehended caused countless ice spikes to grow from his back, making him look like an ice hedgehog. He wanted to use this to block Long Yu's assassination, but Long Yu did not care about these ice spikes at all. Nether Dragon 9 explosions, dragon roared, darkening sky snow. Spirit Blast. Long Yu activated the profound chi in his body and mixed it with the power of the law of 9 underworlds, instantly sweeping the aura of 9 underworlds forward. The three people who were fleeing were surrounded by a cloud of black snowflakes. Coupled with the dragon roar exploding in their ears, their speed abruptly dropped. Heavenly Mandate, Divine Light. Nether Divine Rune, Light Blast. Long Yu once again used this so-called acquired mystique, shattering all the ice spikes on the back of the person in front of him with a single move. Then, the Nether Void Dragon Blade stabbed down, shattering the person's heart in a single move. In front of Long Yu, a Heavenly Origin stage martial cultivator could not even last a breath of time. Immediately afterward, Long Yu merged with the Dragon Sparrow image and quickly caught up to the two people in front of him. The pitch-black light of the Void Underworld Dragon Blade continuously flashed in the mine. Not long after, Deng Yuan and the four people he led were completely annihilated by Long Yu. Going, Long Yu casually picked up the corpses and threw them into the space of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. The 7th floor was filled with the power of the divine, siphoning runes. It wouldn't take long for these corpses to be reduced to bones. When that time came, Long Yu could take them out, and no one would know their identities. The parts of the mine that were stained with blood were also dug out by Long Yu with the Nether Dragon Blade. He threw the hard boulders and gray metals into the Dragon Bone Tower. The ancient Dragon Bone Tower is a good tool to destroy corpses. The corners of Long Yu's mouth curled slightly as he thought to himself. Next, he just needed to pretend that he knew nothing. In any case, no one would know that he had a conflict with Deng Yuan and the others. Long Yu returned to the mine alone. He held the Netherworld Dragon Blade in his hand and continued to dig at the gray metal wall. About 6 hours later, the tunnel had been forcefully dug by Long Yu to a length of several dozen feet. All the gray metals dug out were thrown into the ancient dragon-bone tower by Long Yu. At the same time, he also obtained more than 20 fist-sized cyan diamonds. As for thumb-sized cyan diamonds, there were more than 100 of them. There were even cyan diamonds the size of a human head. The dense heaven and earth spiritual energy within them caused Long Yu to exclaim in admiration. Long Yu stored all these things in the ancient dragon-bone tower and hid them. Just as he was about to leave, a few people suddenly appeared behind him and stopped him. The one in front was the leader of the entire vulture mining team. The burly man was called Zhou Xiongliang. Behind him were 3 heavenly beginnings martial cultivators. They all looked at Long Yu coldly. "Where are Deng Yuan and the others?" Zhou Xiongliang asked in a deep voice. He stared at Long Yu and emitted the powerful aura of a heavenly flower realm expert, suppressing Long Yu. "I couldn't dig through the wall. They didn't like me, so I came here on my own." Long Yu did not panic at all despite feeling the pressure from the other party. Instead, he replied calmly, "I remember that this path was blocked by gray silver. Why is there an additional several dozen feet now?" Zhou Xiongliang snorted coldly. "Kid, what the hell are you doing? You must be doing something sneaky. Hurry up and tell us, or else you'll take my life." Long Yu chuckled. "I joined your Condor squad, but I didn't do anything. Yet, you want my life? Isn't that too ridiculous? Don't you think it's a little inappropriate to threaten me like this? Cut the crap. Hurry up and tell us where Deng Yuan and the others are." One of the people behind Zhou Xiongliang yelled, "You'll die if you don't tell us. What if I told you that Deng Yuan and the others tried to kill me for my combat weapon, but I killed them instead? Would you believe me?" Long Yu's eyes flickered coldly as he asked. His words caused the expressions of the 4 people, including Zhou Xiongliang, to change slightly. "Did you really kill them?" One of them was shocked. "Could it be that you've been hiding your strength? You should at least be a heavenly flower realm cultivator to be able to take on 5 people at once, right?" "No, this kid is only a human tribulation realm cultivator." Zhou Xiongliang shook his head as a vicious expression appeared on his face. "However, there's still no news of Deng Yuan and the others. They were most likely killed by this kid. Anyone who dares to kill the people of the vultures will die." A heavenly origin realm martial cultivator glared at Long Yu with a vicious look in his eyes. "Let me do it." The leader of the vultures, Zhou Xiongliang, stepped forward. The burly man's head was almost touching the ceiling of the mine, making him look extremely sturdy. Coupled with the aura emitted from his body, the people behind him felt extremely relieved. No matter how strong Long Yu was, it was impossible for him to break through their leader, a heavenly flower realm expert, Zhou Xiongliang. Long Yu saw the vicious and cold looks in their eyes as they discussed. It was obvious that this was not the first time they had done something like this. They did not care about the truth. They only knew that Long Yu and Deng Yuan and the others had entered the mine together, but Deng Yuan and the others had disappeared. Therefore, they believed that it was Long Yu's doing. Not only that, but from the greedy look in Zhou Xiongliang's eyes, Long Yu also knew that this guy had guessed that he had some treasure on him and wanted to kill him for it. Looks like the mining teams in this Devil Nightmare Mountain range are really not people that can be trifled with. All of them are fierce and cruel. Long Yu thought. Since Zhou Xiongliang wanted to kill Long Yu without hesitation, Long Yu naturally would not sit and wait for death. Before Zhou Xiongliang made his move, Long Yu directly used the invisibility divine rune, allowing his body to hide within the mine. However, this mine had already reached the end. With Zhou Xiongliang's tall and sturdy body blocking his way, Long Yu had no way out. "You want to play hide and seek with me? How naive." Zhou Xiongliang's lips curled up as he said disdainfully, "Shadow Sky Snake Law. Kill him." As soon as he said this, an extremely cold aura was emitted from his body. Then, several snake-shaped spiritual energy condensed around his body. The Shadow Sky Snake Law was actually a heaven crystal law. There was a total of 7 shadow sky snakes. As soon as they appeared, the entire place was shrouded in a sinister aura. Every shadow sky snake carried an extremely terrifying aura. After these 7 shadow sky snakes appeared, they slithered towards Zhou Xiongliang. Even if they couldn't see where Long Yu was, there was only so much space ahead. Where could Long Yu go? Shadow sky snake bite. Zhou Xiongliang's eyes flashed with a cruel light. He raised his hand, and the 7 shadow sky snakes released a poisonous gas that filled the entire space in front of them. Even a heavenly tribulation realm expert might not be able to withstand this poison, let alone a mere mortal tribulation realm brat like you. If you're smart, surrender immediately, and I might spare your life. Otherwise, just die, Zhou Xiongliang said calmly as he looked at the scene in front of him. This was because he was certain that after he released the shadow sky snakebite, as long as the kid called Shan Gui did not beg for mercy within 3 breaths, he would be poisoned and die. Is that so? Long Yu's chuckle suddenly rang in the ears of Zhou Xiongliang and the others. Immediately after, Zhou Xiongliang's expression changed slightly. He couldn't find where Long Yu was, but the poisonous gas released by his 7 shadow sky snakes had been completely absorbed by some strange power. In just a moment, the devourer of the shadow heavenly snake that he had released had already disappeared from the entire mine, causing his face to darken completely. Boom! Boom! Kill that brat! Zhou Xiongliang felt a chill run down his spine. He immediately waved his hand and ordered the 3 heavenly origin stage martial practitioners behind him to release extremely strong power of laws toward a small section of the mine ahead. The walls of the mine in the Nightmare Mountain range were extremely hard. Even after countless people had fought fiercely inside, it was impossible to dig through. The power of the Shadow Sky Snake Law, along with the power of the 3 heavenly tablet laws, filled the entire space. However, in the next moment, everyone felt that more than half of their power was reflected back. Reincarnation Barrier. Long Yu hid in the shadows, and with a wave of his hand, he condensed the reincarnation barrier, after which lightning crackled around his body as he forcefully withstood the attacks of the 4 opponents. With a single step, he appeared in front of Zhou Xiongliang. Nether Dragon 9 explosions. 5th explosion, Dragon Heart Edict. Long Yu displayed the 5th explosion of the Nether Dragon 9 explosions, a move that he had comprehended while chasing after Deng Yuan and the other 2. The 5th explosion, Dragon Heart Edict, used a dragon roar to interfere with the opponent's heartbeat, causing their hearts to explode and die. A dragon roar suddenly rang in Zhou Xiongliang's ears, shocking him on the spot and causing him to lose the ability to think. When he returned to his senses, his heart was already pounding along with the dragon roar around him. The frequency of the dragon roar grew faster and louder, causing Zhou Xiongliang's heart to beat faster and faster. In less than a breath's time, finally, explode. Chapter 471. The Dragonheart Edict was the 5th explosion that Long Yu could only use after he had comprehended the Great Desolate level martial technique, the Nether Dragon's 9 explosions, to the Perfection Realm. This move directly used a dragon's roar to shock the opponent's heartbeat and explode their heart meridians, killing them in one blow. Even someone as strong as Zhou Xiongliang, who was at the Heavenly Flower stage, was unable to survive Long Yu's attack. But even so, Long Yu was still heavily injured by the attacks of the others. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He took 2 steps back. His black clothes flickered with lightning as the self-healing runes in his body continuously healed his internal injuries. As long as he was given some time, he would be able to completely recover. With the powerful Thunderbolt Tyrant body and the power of the self-healing runes, the attacks of a few Heaven Origin Realm Martial Cultivators would no longer be able to kill Long Yu. Long Yu raised his head and swept a glance at the remaining 3 Martial Cultivators. The 3 of them immediately screamed and turned to run. Even Zhou Xiongliang in the Heaven Flower Realm was killed by this mountain ghost. What could the remaining Heaven Origin Realm Martial cultivators do? They could only run. When Long Yu saw them escaping, he heaved a sigh of relief. Right now, he was severely injured. If the other party did not run away and instead fought to the death, then Long Yu would not be able to obtain any benefits. What Long Yu needed to do now was to heal his injuries and go out to see how the Vulture team was doing. The three that escaped would definitely announce Zhou Xiongliang's death. When that happened, he did not know what the remaining people would do. Would they encircle and annihilate Long Yu, or would they scatter? Long Yu did not know. He could only use the self-healing runes in his body to heal himself and could not chase after the three that escaped. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Long Yu's breathing gradually stabilized and his heartbeat returned to normal. The internal injuries he suffered were completely healed by the self-healing divine runes. It was even more effective than taking an Earth-rank healing pill. But at this moment, a noise came from the entrance of the mine. It was obvious that someone had entered. "Are you here to encircle me?" Long Yu narrowed his eyes. Amidst the clamor, there were quite a few people saying that they wanted to kill him and seize his treasures. Moreover, they guessed that he was heavily injured, which was why he didn't chase after those three people. Long Yu didn't even think about it. He immediately used the hidden divine rune, and his entire figure disappeared from the mine. Instead, he headed toward the entrance of the mine. Aside from Zhou Xiongliang, the rest of the Vulture squad were only at the Heavenly Origin stage. No one could see through Long Yu's stealth divine rune. Soon, Long Yu saw that the remaining members of the Vulture squad had all arrived. Each of them had a fierce look on their faces, as if they wanted to tear Long Yu into pieces. 1, 2, 3 for 8 people. Long Yu glanced at it, and his heart skipped a beat. He remembered that when they first arrived on the platform, there were a total of 15 members in the Vulture squad. Now that Deng Yuan and the other 4 were dead, as well as Zhou Xiongliang, there should be 9 people left. Why was one missing? This discovery stopped Long Yu from taking action for the time being. After all, safety was the most important thing. He was currently facing 8 Heavenly Realm experts, and each of them had a higher cultivation level than Long Yu. If Long Yu wasn't careful, it would be very easy for him to fail miserably. Moreover, the 9th person had yet to appear, and he might be hiding in the dark. He hid in a mine and watched as the group of people split up and walked deeper into the mine. Soon, he discovered that Long Yu was nowhere to be seen. "Right, that guy can turn invisible. We have to be careful," someone suddenly said. This person was one of the 3 people who came with Zhou Xiongliang to besiege Long Yu. "Why didn't you say so earlier? That guy probably slipped away long ago." Another person said unhappily, "But don't be too careless. Surround him. Once he sneaks up on us, we can immediately give him a head-on blow. Let's not rush. Let's go back and guard the cave entrance, lest that guy runs away." That's right. Old Nine has already informed Deputy General Zhou. Deputy General Zhou will definitely be furious with the death of our boss. That guy can't run away no matter what. Long Yu hid at the side and listened to these people's conversation. He frowned slightly. Deputy General Zhou? Long Yu knew that there were 4 other deputy generals in the entire Nightmare Legion besides General Huiyuan Bai. One of the 4 deputy generals did seem to have the surname Zhou. No way. Who the hell is this Zhou Xiongliang? Is he a relative of Deputy General Zhou? Long Yu cursed in his heart. He was too unlucky. Fortunately, he was injured a moment ago and was unable to chase and kill those 3 fellows, causing the news to leak out. Now that old Jiu had already gone to inform Deputy General Zhou. Even if Long Yu set off to chase them now, it would be impossible for him to catch them. I didn't expect to get into trouble on my first day here, but this can't be blamed on me. Do I have no choice but to let others kill me if they want to kill me? Long Yu thought to himself as a cold light flashed across his eyes. He had just arrived in an unfamiliar environment. He did not want to kill unless it was necessary. However, when Deng Yuan Bai, Zhou Xiongliang, and the others made it clear that they wanted to kill Long Yu and seize his treasure, how could Long Yu just let himself be captured? To Long Yu, a counterattack was something that couldn't be more normal. Even if this matter reached General Huayuanbai, Long Yu had enough reasons to do so. Deputy General Zhou was definitely an expert in the mystery realm. If he were to deal with Long Yu would not have any chance of resisting. For now, Long Yu could only inform Huayuanbai or little fatty Ren Pingfan about this matter. Little fatty said that he would send someone to monitor my safety. But now that he has just been appointed as a foreign military advisor, he shouldn't be able to send someone to monitor me so soon. Long Yu shook his head. No matter how he thought about it, he still had to rely on himself to solve this matter. However, before reporting to Huayuanbai, Long Yu had one more thing to do. That was to kill all the guys in the mine. Since these guys were his enemies and he had the ability to kill them, there was no reason for him to let them live. Murderous intent surged in Long Yu's eyes. He stealthily returned to the mine and observed the power. If these powers were to land on Long Yu at the same time, there was no chance that Long Yu would survive, even with the Black Thunder Overlord body and the self-healing divine text. Wind, thunder, rain, lightning, boulders, and flames came from all directions. However, the corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up. Dragon Sparrow Flash. This was a defensive skill extended from a supreme mystic-level skill. It could allow Long Yu to cross to another dimension in an instant and avoid all attacks. When the Dragon Sparrow Flash was used, Long Yu's entire body turned translucent. The various attacks aimed at him passed through his body as if they were passing through a wisp of green smoke. What? The 7 people were all shocked. Then they were overwhelmed. The person that Long Yu had chosen to assassinate was in the center of the 7 people. When Long Yu used the Dragon Sparrow Flash to avoid the attacks from the 7 people, the chaotic attacks started to attack the others. Infinite power of laws and divine text burst out, and the whole scene instantly became extremely chaotic. Taking advantage of the chaos, Long Yu was like a fish in water. Holding the Void Dragon Blade, he continuously performed the 9 explosions of the Nether Dragon. In the midst of the dragon roars, 2 more martial cultivators died under Long Yu's attacks. 9 Nether Blood Shadow. When Long Yu killed 2 people, the initial chaos had passed. Then, he threw out the 9 Nether Blood Shadow, which had been modified into a supreme mystic-level combat weapon. An invisible 9 Nether Blood Shadow instantly spread out and attached itself to the remaining 5 people, causing their expressions to change. What, trying to suck my blood? The 5 people were about to attack Long Yu again, but were shocked by the 9 Nether Blood Shadow's ability to suck their blood. In a hurry, Long Yu took advantage of the weakness of one of them. The Void Dragon Blade flickered with a dark and eerie luster, and instantly cut open the person's neck, causing a spray of blood to spray out. The Nether Dragon Blade was one of the sharpest weapons in the entire Shura Prefecture, and even in the entire Shenwu world. Combined with the power of the 9 Nether Law and the divine text that Long Yu had comprehended, no Heaven Origin martial cultivator could withstand a single attack from it. Even a defensive barrier formed by the laws of heaven and earth would not be able to withstand a single attack from Long Yu. At most, it would cause some trouble for Long Yu. Only half of the 8 people who entered the mine were left in an instant. The remaining 4 each unleashed their powerful auras to disperse the 9 Nether Blood Shadow. However, in the blink of an eye, they discovered that Long Yu had once again disappeared from their sight. Immediately, the remaining 4 were filled with boundless fear. While Long Yu was killing the 8 people in a military camp of the Nightmare Legion. The 4 deputy generals of the Nightmare Legion were in charge of 4 different camps, so that they could coordinate with each other. Once a battle broke out, and the martial cultivators of the Ghost Evil Province invaded, they could quickly spread the news and react accordingly. At this moment, the furious roar of Deputy General Zhou Li came from the camp located at the easternmost side. What did you say? My nephew Zhou Xiongliang was killed in the Sun mining area? Who has the guts to be so arrogant in the Sun mining area? Chapter 472. Sun mining area, the mine where the Vulture Squad was located. After Long Yu dealt with the remaining 8 cultivators of the Vulture team, he walked out of the mine. Apart from killing Zhou Xiongliang and offending Deputy General Zhou, he had gained quite a lot from this trip. He had obtained over 100 green rim diamonds, which were extremely valuable. The entire Vulture Squad would probably not be able to obtain so many things even if they work hard for an entire year. It was clear that the Void Nether Dragon Blade had brought great benefits to Long Yu. Long Yu left the mine and arrived at the platform in the mountain. He suddenly frowned. This was because he discovered that there were two Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivators guarding the platform. They both looked somewhat lazy, and their eyes were filled with contempt when they saw Long Yu. These two guys aren't from the Vulture Squad. Long Yu immediately made a judgment and became vigilant. You're that mountain ghost? It's said that you've committed a crime. It won't be easy to escape. It's better for you to stay here and wait for the enforcers to come. One of them looked at Long Yu and said with a chuckle. This person had extremely high cheekbones and looked extremely cunning. He was definitely not an easy person to deal with. Old 9 of the Vulture Squad said that you killed their boss, Zhou Xiongliang, and asked us to watch you. A mere human tribulation realm kid actually managed to kill Zhou Xiongliang. You're quite a talent. The other person smiled faintly. He looked similar to the person beside him, so they should be brothers. Although the two of them didn't do anything, their auras were released when they saw Long Yu. It was obvious that if Long Yu tried to escape, the two of them would join forces to take down Long Yu. You're from the other mining squads nearby. Long Yu raised his brows and asked. That's right. The cunning guy with high cheekbones who spoke first narrowed his eyes. The mining squad was originally here to make money. I didn't expect you to kill your boss, Zhou Xiongliang. It's really inappropriate. You even caused yourself to lose your life. Zhou Xiongliang's backer is very powerful. If it weren't for that, the two of us wouldn't have to stay here and watch over you. The other person chuckled. Long Yu roughly knew what was going on. These two fellows were probably helpers that 9th brother had found from other places before he left. Their purpose was to keep an eye on Long Yu and prevent him from escaping. Long Yu might not necessarily be able to deal with Heavenly Tribulation Realm cultivators. Not to mention there were two more in front of him. Long Yu pondered for a moment and immediately made a decision. The only thing he could do now was to release the ancient dragon skeleton pagoda. Otherwise, he would definitely be held back by those two fellows. When Deputy General Zhou personally arrived, the situation would be quite bad. Dragonbone Tower, come out. With a thought, Long Yu activated the dragon scale of the 9 serenities and released the ancient Dragonbone Tower. Then, using the spatial power of the dragon scale of the 9 serenities, he hid in the 7th floor of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. At the same time, the entire ancient Dragonbone Tower expanded rapidly and soon became a gigantic tower. It flew into the air and into the distance. The two Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivator brothers' expressions changed at this scene. What's this? It seems like 9th brother wasn't lying when he said that this person had many treasures on him. The cunning martial cultivator with high cheekbones said coldly, Of course. Otherwise, how could a mere human tribulation realm kid kill Zhou Xiongliang? The other person snorted coldly. After him, the two of them rose into the air and emitted the aura of the heavenly steel's nomological laws. Moreover, each of them had comprehended 2 types of heavenly steel's nomological laws. In fact, they even had the power of some divine text mixed in. The ancient Dragonbone Tower was cumbersome and slow after all. The two of them caught up to it and blasted it with all sorts of powers. Even beasts in the mystic realm can't destroy the ancient Dragonbone Tower. You two Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivators can forget about it. Long Yu hid on the 7th level of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. The corners of his lips curled as he controlled the ancient Dragonbone Tower to fly towards General Hui Yuanbai's camp. The two Heavenly Tribulation Realm brothers unleashed all sorts of attacks, causing explosions on the ancient Dragonbone Tower. However, a moment later, the two of them realized that their attacks had no effect on the ancient tower at all. It was as if they were sweeping through the ancient tower. Big brother, you and I can sense each other's location. Why don't we do this? You chase after the ancient tower, and I'll guard here. When Deputy Zoe arrives, I'll bring them here. We must capture this kid. The cunning martial cultivator with high cheekbones suggested to his big brother. The other person narrowed his eyes and nodded slowly. That's fine. Be careful. Don't worry, big brother. A mere human tribulation realm kid killed Zhou Xiongliang and was already severely injured. How could anything happen to me? After the cunning martial cultivator with the high cheekbones finished speaking, he followed closely behind the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda and sat on the top of the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda, allowing Long Yu to control the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda to float forward. The other person turned around and returned to the sun mining area to wait for Deputy General Zhou Li's arrival. Long Yu hid on the 7th level of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. He had originally wanted to fly to Hui Yuanbai's camp, but he couldn't help but be amused when he saw the two brothers moving separately. He might not be able to beat two Heavenly Tribulation Realm fellows, but now that there was only one left, he wanted to give it a try. On one hand, he could train his combat abilities. On the other hand, these two fellows wanted to use him as a stepping stone to befriend Deputy General Zhou. Long Yu wouldn't let them have their way. Since they were enemies, he had to kill them. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble. Long Yu was never soft-hearted. Furthermore, with the ancient Dragonbone Tower, there was no way Long Yu would lose his life. It didn't matter even if he lost to this guy. Thinking of this, Long Yu left the space of the ancient Dragonbone Tower with a single thought, dashing out. Heavenly Mandate, Divine Light. Law of 9 Serenities. Explosion of light. Long Yu shouted and saw a beam of pitch-black divine light condense in front of him. It then shot toward the Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivator at the top of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. It suddenly exploded when it was about to hit the Martial Cultivator's face. A pitch-black aura of 9 serenities completely enveloped the top of the tower, giving off an extremely eerie aura. The Heavenly Mandate Divine Light was an acquired ability, and its power exceeded that of ordinary superior Earth-level martial arts techniques. It wouldn't be completely useless against a Heavenly Tribulation Realm expert. As expected, the cunning Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivator with high cheekbones, who had been ambushed by Long Yu, quickly used his techniques and broke out of the area at the top of the tower that was filled with 9 Serenities chi. However, his entire body was covered in dust, and he even suffered some minor injuries. How dare you ambush me, Cheng-Yi? You must be tired of living. The cunning martial cultivator called Cheng-Yi had an extremely ugly expression of anger on his face. He had always been the one scheming against others. When had he ever been the one being ambushed? Because of this, Cheng-Yi was angered by Long Yu. His face was filled with anger. Raising his hand, a 5-colored screen of light appeared. It was actually a type of divine text. Furthermore, he had comprehended 70% of the divine text power. This person had actually obtained divine text inscriptions before. Long Yu's expression changed slightly. However, on second thought, if even Bei Tianyi on Heavenly Mandate Island could obtain divine text inscriptions, then it wouldn't be strange for Heavenly Tribulation Realm Martial Cultivators of Shura Prefecture to obtain divine text inscriptions. Although the number of divine text inscriptions was still very few, they would still encounter one eventually. The 5-colored light screen that Cheng-Yi had condensed quickly spread out, completely enveloping him and Long Yu within it, and actually formed a sealed space. He seemed to know that as long as Long Yu hid in the ancient dragon skeleton tower, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Long Yu. As such, he directly condensed the divine text inscriptions and trapped Long Yu in an enclosed space. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. If he wanted to enter the ancient dragon skeleton tower now, he only needed to use the spatial power of the dragon scale of the Hades underworld. He didn't need to enter through the entrance like before, as he had already resonated with the ancient dragon skeleton tower. Trapping him in an enclosed space wouldn't stop him from entering the ancient dragon skeleton tower. Moreover, would Long Yu really be trapped in this enclosed space? Brat, I won't kill you, but I'll capture you alive. Once Deputy Zoe arrives, your death will come. A vicious expression appeared on Cheng Yi's face. He raised his hand, and a wave of five-colored light continued to condense in his hand, forming two ferocious cheetahs that pounced towards Long Yu. At the same time, a true spirit of a cheetah appeared behind the heavenly tribulation realm martial cultivator, increasing the power of the five-colored cheetahs. They became even more ferocious, as if they wanted to tear Long Yu to pieces. The purpose of releasing a true spirit was to increase one's comprehension of the laws of the universe. However, after entering the heavenly realm, the true spirit's amplification effect on one's comprehension of the laws of the universe was not as obvious. On the contrary, the true spirit could easily be destroyed by the great power of those in the heavenly realm. Because of this, heavenly tribulation realm martial cultivators rarely released their true spirits in battle. They would use martial techniques directly or release the laws of the universe to fight their enemies. However, this cunning heavenly tribulation realm martial cultivator Cheng Yi seemed to be a little different. His true spirit of cheetahs was vivid and lifelike, making the two ferocious cheetahs he condensed more than twice as powerful. I wonder what element this five-color divine text has, but still can't compare to my Yu divine text. Long Yu thought to himself. He immediately used the Yu divine text to condense the heavenly mandate divine light, forming a light screen that faced the two ferocious cheetahs. Even though Long Yu's martial arts realm was not high, the Yu divine text was much more powerful than his opponent's five-color divine text. The defensive light screen, formed by the heavenly mandate martial technique, stopped the two ferocious cheetahs from pouncing on him. Then, a pair of pitch-black dragon sparrow wings appeared on Long Yu's back. With the dragon sparrow instant teleportation, he suddenly appeared in front of Cheng Yi. 9 explosions of the dark dragon. Dragon roared, darkening sky snow. As soon as Long Yu used this move, black snowflakes began to fall from the sky. The roar of a dragon could be heard, causing Cheng Yi to fall into a trance uncontrollably for a moment. In the next moment, Long Yu shouted and punched out a dragon heart decree. Chapter 473. As soon as the Dragonheart Edict was used, the heavenly tribulation realm martial cultivator named Cheng immediately revealed a pained expression. He felt as if the blood flow in his body was no longer under his control. Not long after, the blood in his body boiled, and his heart beat more and more violently along with the dragon roars around him. If this continued, Cheng Yi would definitely end up like Zhou Xiongliang, killed by the Dragonheart Edict. However, he was worthy of being a heavenly tribulation realm expert. In that moment of imminent peril, his entire body erupted with the power of the five-color divine runes, forcibly blasting away the pressure brought about by Long Yu's punch. The endless dragon roars were dispersed by him, showing how terrifying his strength was. If the Dragonheart Edict was used against the heavenly tribulation realm experts on Heavenly Mandate Island, no one would be able to resist it. However, Cheng Yi had forcefully resisted it. This five-color divine character seems to be quite powerful. Long Yu narrowed his eyes, but he did not care that his opponent had dispersed the pressure of the Dragonheart Edict. Although Cheng Yi had broken free from the Lungxin's strenuous influence, he was still covered in cold sweat, and his body had become extremely stiff. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Long Yu released the 9 Serenity's blood shadow with a thought. An invisible and formless energy enveloped Cheng Yi's entire body and started to absorb his blood. This made Cheng Yi snort coldly, and the five-color divine characters burst out once again, forcibly repelling the dark blood shadow. A top-grade profound level battle weapon was almost useless against an opponent 3 levels higher than Long Yu. However, in this short period of time, Long Yu used another technique. Siphon divine characters. Long Yu raised his hand, and a wave of power from the siphon divine characters surged out, covering Cheng Yi's entire body. Then, a suction force even stronger than the dark blood shadow enveloped Cheng Yi. Although Long Yu had only comprehended 1% of the siphon divine rune, This came directly from the source of divine runes. It was far more tyrannical than Cheng Yi's 70% comprehension of the 5-color divine runes. Even though Cheng Yi continuously tried to use the power of the 5-color divine characters to break through the siphon divine characters, he was unable to do so. Instead, the siphon divine characters absorbed a great deal of the 5-color divine characters' power, causing him to fall into a state where he was unable to resist. Nether Void Dragon Blade kill. A cold light flashed through Long Yu's eyes, and he flapped his dragon sparrow wings while the siphon divine runes stalled Cheng Yi, bringing him close to Cheng Yi. The void nether dragon blade flashed with a deep and strange luster, gathering the boundless power of the nether character, and instantly pierced into Cheng Yi's arm. It wasn't that Long Yu didn't want to attack his opponent's vitals. It was just that the power of Cheng Yi's 5-color divine characters couldn't be ignored. His arm was the weakest. If Long Yu attacked anywhere else, even though the other party would not be able to block the nether void dragon blade, Long Yu would still be heavily injured. In the next instant, Long Yu used the dragon sparrow instant teleportation to retreat. Cheng Yi, who wanted to seize the opportunity to kill Long Yu, missed his target. The blood that flowed out of his arm seemed to make the siphon divine runes that covered him even more terrifying. They actually absorbed all the blood that he was about to bleed. In just a breath's time, Cheng Yi's entire arm had withered. It was clear that the siphon divine runes had sucked away enough of his blood, causing his arm to wither. What the hell is this? A look of panic finally appeared on Cheng Yi's face. He continuously tried to erupt with the power of the 2 heavenly steel laws, as well as the power of the 5-color divine characters. He wanted to break free from the siphon divine characters, but he was unable to do so. Finally, Long Yu found an opportunity. Just as Cheng Yi was getting more and more exhausted, he flashed and sent the nether void dragon blade into his back, shattering his heart meridian. The siphon divine characters are probably torture for you. Since that's the case, let me help you escape from this abyss of suffering. Long Yu sneered and put away the nether void dragon blade. Then, with a thought, he sent Cheng Yi's corpse into the 7th level of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. Cheng Yi's brother would probably never have imagined that Long Yu would kill Cheng Yi as soon as he left. Although Long Yu had used up most of his means, he had still managed to defeat a heavenly tribulation realm expert head-on. Of course, the martial cultivators who came to the sun mining area to make a fortune could not be considered martial experts. If it had been the heavenly tribulation realm subordinates of Bai Qing and Tian Xinghe in Azura Valley, it would not have been so easy for Long Yu to deal with them. There's actually an Earth-grade combat weapon. Long Yu found an Earth-grade combat weapon on Cheng Yi's body. It was a bracelet, but it was not meant to be used in battle. Long Yu tried to wear it on his wrist and felt a strange power directly transmitted from the bracelet to his dantian, causing the 3 true spirits in his dantian to be strengthened one after another. So that's how it is. Although this Earth-grade combat weapon bracelet cannot be used in battle, it can strengthen one's true spirit and allow a martial cultivator to unleash more powerful laws of heaven and earth. After understanding the situation, Long Yu threw the Earth-grade combat weapon bracelet into the space of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. Of course, the bracelet still had its uses. Long Yu did not place it on the 7th level of the ancient Dragonbone Tower. Otherwise, if it was placed in the siphon divine characters, it would become completely useless after a period of time. Not to mention Earth-grade combat weapons. Even Heaven-grade combat weapons would not be able to survive if they were placed in the siphon divine characters for a long period of time. Long Yu flew straight to the camp where General Huiyuan Bai was. Not long after he left, a large group of people followed a burly man in golden armor to the place where he and Cheng Yi had fought. This person was one of the 4 deputies of the Nightmare Legion, Deputy General Zhou Li. The one leading Deputy General Zhou Li was Cheng Yi's Tribulation Realm brother. However, when they arrived, they found that there was nothing in the sky and no aura in the mountains below. Where is he? The burly man, Zhou Li, looked at Cheng Yi's brother with a fierce look on his face. I don't know. I have a telepathic connection with my brother. I can clearly sense that he's here, but I don't know why I can't see him." The man's expression changed drastically. "You guys look around here. The rest of you, follow me to find General Hua. Isn't that kid one of the general's men? I'm going to ask General Hua for justice." Zoli snorted coldly and waved his hand, ordering his subordinates to split up. As the deputy general of the Nightmare Legion, Zoli was a super expert in the 5-Dao divinity realm. He was only 2 realms weaker than Hui Yuanbai. Even if little fatty Rin Pingfan or Princess Shu Chan were to come and fight with Zoli, they would not be a match for Zoli. Zoli made the arrangements. Soon, more than 10 people flew in all directions, trying to find traces of the mountain ghost in the vicinity. Even among Zhou Li's subordinates, there were existences in the divine ability secret realm. It could be said that they were more than enough to deal with Long Yu alone. Unfortunately, they couldn't find Long Yu in the vicinity. The burly deputy general, Zhou Li, led his other subordinates and flew straight to Hui Yuanbai's camp. Along with him were the surviving member of the Condor Squad, Old Nine, and Cheng Yi's brother. By now, Long Yu had arrived at Hui Yuanbai's camp and met him. After a brief explanation, Hui Yuanbai understood what had happened. "You rascal, the princess didn't send you here to cause trouble." Hui Yuanbai shook his head with a smile. "But since they're already here, you're not a man if you keep cowering. Don't worry, I know what to do. It just so happens that there's something wrong with Deputy General Zhou Li. I want to teach him a lesson." Long Yu immediately understood. He coughed and said, "General, did you send me to the Condor Squad because you knew there was something wrong with Zhou Li? Why don't you take a guess?" Hui Yuanbai smiled mysteriously. The two chatted in the room. Before long, there was a commotion outside the wooden hut. A burly man's fierce voice sounded. "General Hua, Deputy General Zhou Li is here." Many martial practitioners of the Nightmare Legion who were stationed in the campsite nearby looked at the situation with a strange look and made way for them. To them, both Deputy General Zhou Li and General Hui Yuanbai were their superiors. They had no right to stop them. Hui Yuanbai casually walked out of the wooden hut in a white robe. He glanced at the sky and smiled. "Zhou Li, why did you bring so many people?" Long Yu did not appear because Hui Yuanbai had instructed him not to come out for the time being. If there was a need, he would be summoned. "I'm here to collect a debt." The burly man Zhou Li landed in front of Hui Yuanbai with his men. He did not show any respect at all and said directly, "General Hua, do you know that my nephew, Zhou Xiongliang, was killed by villains in the Sun mining area not long ago?" The surrounding martial cultivators were shocked when they heard this. Everyone knew how protective Deputy General Zhou Li was of his nephew. Who in the entire Nightmare Mountains would dare to kill Zhou Xiongliang? Unless it was those fellows from the Ghost Prefecture. However, from Zhou Li's tone, he did not seem to be from the Ghost Prefecture. Could he be one of their own? Thinking of this, these people couldn't help but feel a little confused. If they were all from a Nightmare Corps or martial practitioners in the Jianghu, how could they kill Zhou Xiongliang? Zhou Xiongliang had always been under the protection of Zhou Li, and whoever offended him would not have a good ending. Zhou Xiongliang was killed by villains? Upon hearing this, Hui Yuanbai faintly chuckled, not minding Zhou Li's fierce tone in the slightest as he straightforwardly said, "From what I know, it seems that Zhou Xiongliang wanted to kill someone else, but was accidentally killed by someone else. If we're talking about the villain, it should be Zhou Xiongliang himself." Zhou Li was furious when he heard Hui Yuanbai's words. "General Hua, aren't you afraid of my nephew's father's wrath by shielding the murderer? You should know that Zhou Xiongliang's father is the deputy commander of the Imperial Guards of Azura Valley. His grandfather is the former prime minister of Azura Prefecture." When these words came out, Long Yu, who had yet to come out, finally realized how big of a disaster he had caused. He did not expect Zhou Xiongliang to have such a background. Chapter 474. Listening to Deputy General Zhou Li's words, Long Yu finally understood what Hui Yuanbai meant when he said there was something wrong with Deputy General Zhou. Despite being a deputy general, he was so arrogant in front of Hui Yuanbai and even cursed loudly. It was obvious that he didn't think much of Hui Yuanbai. Zhou Li's confidence naturally stemmed from his relationship with Zhou Xiongliang. Zhou Xiongliang's father was the vice commander of the Azura Valley's Imperial Guards. In other words, even Shu Chan would have to greet Zhou Xiongliang's father. It must be known that the Azura Valley was the center of the entire Azura County. Zhou Xiongliang's grandfather was even more impressive. He was the former prime minister of Shura Prefecture. With such a relationship, Deputy General Zhou Li could act arrogantly in Shura Prefecture even though he was only a collateral relative of the Zhou family. If Zhou Xiongliang has such a background, why would he come to the Nightmare Corps and lead the Vulture team of mine? Long Yu was rather puzzled about this. Hui Yuanbai's next words quickly answered Long Yu's doubts. Facing the furious Zhou Li, Hui Yuanbai said calmly, Deputy General Zhou, since you want to use your power to oppress others, may I ask what Zhou Xiongliang's ranking among his father's sons? Deputy General Zhou Li was stunned by Hui Yuanbai's question, but he still snorted coldly. So what if he's the sixth? Could it be that if he's ranked lower, he's not the biological son of the Imperial Army's deputy commander? Then let me ask you again. Since Zhou Xiongliang has such a status, why did the deputy commander of the Imperial Guards send him to the Nightmare Corps? Hui Yuanbai continued to ask calmly. Then, of course, it's to let him come here to gain experience. Zhou Li said with a lack of confidence. Since it's training, it must be life-threatening. Why else would it be called training? If he dies in training, it can only be attributed to Zhou Xiongliang's incompetence. Hui Yuanbai spoke eloquently as he stared at Deputy General Zhou Li. Taking a step forward, 7 streams of divine realm aura erupted. Deputy General Zhou, don't you think so? Of course, Zhou Li didn't think what Hui Yuanbai said made sense. But just as he uttered the word no, Hui Yuanbai immediately cut him off. Is there something wrong with that? Where are the other 5 sons of the deputy commander of the Imperial Army? Facing Hui Yuanbai's questioning, Zhou Li had no chance to refute. After all, Hui Yuanbai was a veteran of the battlefield. They are all training in various places. Some have even gone to the imperial city of the Tianqin dynasty. Zhou Li answered guiltily. Of the 5 of them, how many are still alive? Hui Yuanbai closed his eyes and allowed his aura to envelop Zhou Li, but he intentionally avoided looking at the latter. The eldest was killed by a noble young master in the imperial city of the Tianqin dynasty. The third was killed by the cultivators of the Ghost Evil County. Only the 2nd, 4th, and 5th are still alive. As Zhou Li spoke, he scolded himself for not being patient enough to let Hui Yuanbai lead him by the nose. But if he didn't go along with Hui Yuanbai might punish him on the spot. In terms of eloquence, Zhou Li and Hui Yuanbai were not on the same level. Then let me ask you again. The eldest and 3rd sons of the deputy commander of the Imperial Army were killed. Did the deputy commander avenge his sons? Hui Yuanbai opened his eyes slightly and asked. Hearing this, Zhou Li immediately felt that the situation wasn't good, but he didn't know what the problem was. He could only bite the bullet and say no. The eldest son of the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard had been killed by a noble young master of the Tianqin dynasty. Not to mention the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard. Even the Azura Duke would have to think twice if he wanted to take revenge. He would have to consider whether he could bear the consequences. And his 3rd son was killed by the cultivators of the Ghost Evil County when they were fighting against the cultivators of the Ghost Evil County. The Ghost Evil County had always been the enemy of the Azura Prefecture. If he could take revenge, the deputy commander of the Imperial Army would have done it long ago. Why would he wait until now? Since he didn't take revenge, then it's settled. The corner of Hui Yuanbai's mouth curled up. Now, his most talented son, Zhou Xiongliang, died even after coming to the Nightmare Legion to train. It's obvious that he couldn't withstand a single blow. What a disgrace to the deputy commander of the Imperial Army. Hearing this, Zhou Li's face turned green and white. General Hua, but Zhou Xiongliang was killed by a villain. That person killed him in order to snatch the green edge diamond. How infuriating. When Zhou Li said this, he seemed to have found his own reasoning and instantly gained some confidence. However, this confidence was quickly shattered by Hui Yuanbai's next sentence. He almost put a crime on Hui Yuanbai. Hua Yuanbai narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "According to what you're saying, if an outsider kills the son of the Imperial Guard's vice commander, he doesn't have to bear any responsibility. But if someone from our Shura prefecture kills him, he will be punished? What kind of logic is this? Deputy General Zhou, you're still thinking of infighting when the enemy is the Ghost Prefecture? You really have no sense of responsibility as the Deputy General of the Nightmare Legion." The martial cultivators of the Nightmare Legion looked at Zhou Li with unfriendly gazes after he said that. In the entire Nightmare Legion, Zhou Li was the Deputy General, but in reality, he had very few trusted subordinates. There were hundreds of thousands of martial cultivators in the Nightmare Legion, and most of them were Hui Yuanbai's men. What Zhou Li said today would soon spread out, and this Deputy General Zhou Li would become a traitor in the eyes of many martial cultivators. After all, as the Deputy General of the Nightmare Legion, Zhou Li did not deal with the people of the Ghost Evil County, but instead, he went against his own people. This was really hateful. In this way, Deputy General Zhou Li's influence in the Nightmare Legion would be further weakened. Although he was a deputy general, he could not command the other martial cultivators. Moreover, Zhou Li had always relied on his family's power to show off in the Nightmare Legion. He did not even respect General Hui Yuanbai, so he had long planted a seed of disgust in the hearts of many martial cultivators. Hui Yuanbai's words were so blunt that Zhou Li did not know how to refute. He immediately froze on the spot. Very good. Seeing that the surrounding martial cultivators were pointing at him, Zhou Li knew that if he continued to speak, his reputation would be ruined. That would not be worth the loss. He took a deep look at Hui Yuanbai, and a trace of viciousness appeared in his eyes. In that case, I have been rude. General Hua, I will take my leave. After saying this, Zhou Li turned around and was about to leave with his men. Wait, that one stays. Hui Yuanbai did not give up. He narrowed his eyes and pointed at the remaining old 9 in the vulture troop. This caused the skinny 9th brother to jump in fright. What did Hui Yuanbai want to do by keeping him here alone? Zhou Li was very clear about Hui Yuanbai's intention of keeping old 9, but he had no reason to stop him. Soon, old 9 stayed in Hui Yuanbai's camp under the threat of 2 martial cultivators. Don't be nervous. Come to me. Hui Yuanbai smiled faintly at number 9 and waved. General Hua. When old 9 saw Deputy General Zhou Li, he felt uneasy. After all, he had gone to report Zhou Xiongliang's death. It was not good news. Now that he saw Hui Yuanbai, although he did not need to be afraid of anything, the thought of a certain possibility made his heart beat faster. What if Hui Yuanbai wanted him to tell the truth in order to resolve the matter of Zhou Xiongliang's death? What should he do? Of course, old 9 knew the truth. It must be that Deng Yuanbai could not help but make a move to snatch the green edge diamond from that kid. But if he told the truth, even the Deputy General of the Imperial Army would not have a reason to avenge his son. In that case, old 9 would become a thorn in the side of Zhou Li and the Deputy General of the Imperial Army. After all, he was the only survivor of the vulture troop. He was the most qualified to speak, and his words carried the most weight. Old 9 walked up to Hui Yuanbai with his head lowered, not daring to look at him. Everyone calls you old 9, right? Hui Yuanbai smiled and patted his shoulder. I asked you to stay, so you can tell the truth about Zhou Xiongliang's death. Don't be nervous. No matter what you say, I won't blame you. He actually asked old 9 this question in front of him. Old 9 was at a loss. If he told everyone that it was Zhou Xiongliang's fault, wouldn't he offend Zhou Li and the Deputy General of the Imperial Army? If he insisted on standing on Deputy General Zhou Li's side, would Hui Yuanbai fall out with him on the spot? After all, Zhou Li was definitely not Hui Yuanbai's match, and Hui Yuanbai's status in the entire Shura prefecture was no less than that of the deputy general of the imperial army. Old Nine did not have the courage to lie to Hui Yuanbai. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Hui Yuanbai looked at the nervous Old Nine, his eyes gleaming. "Just tell me the truth. I won't blame you no matter what. If you're worried that you'll offend someone, Hui Yuanbai, can give you a guarantee that you won't be targeted by those people." How about that? Hui Yuanbai's guarantee was probably well known in the entire Shura prefecture. This old general was the pillar of Shura prefecture that had fought against the martial cultivators of Ghost prefecture for decades. His words had always carried weight. When the ninth brother heard this, he didn't hesitate at all and recounted what had happened at that time. "I'm not too sure about what happened before, but I followed Baso into the mine after he sensed the aura of the green edge diamond. I didn't see Deng Yuanbai and the other four. Then Baso told us to kill that mountain ghost, little brother mountain ghost." Old Nine said, "I didn't expect little brother mountain ghost to be so much stronger than the human tribulation realm he appeared to be. Even Baso, who was at the heaven flower realm, was killed by him in a few moves. I took advantage of the chaos to escape." In other words, Zhou Xiongliang wanted to kill mountain ghost, right? Hui Yuanbai narrowed his eyes. "That's right." Chapter 475. When old Jiu revealed the truth, the surrounding martial cultivators came to a realization. As expected, Zhou Xiongliang was not a good person to begin with. It was normal for him to be killed for trying to snatch the cyan edge diamond. Under such circumstances, Zhou Xiongliang would have died in vain. Most importantly, the mountain ghost was General Hui Yuanbai's subordinate. A young man favored by General Hui Yuanbai would not have a problem with his character. "Since you've revealed the truth, then there's no problem." Hui Yuanbai smiled when he heard old Jiu's words. "From today onwards, you will stay by my side temporarily. Help me tidy up the refining materials. Anyone who wants to touch, you will have to get my permission first." By saying that, Hui Yuanbai had kept his promise to protect Lao Jiu from the Zhou family's revenge. Long Yu hid in Hui Yuanbai's wooden house and watched Hui Yuanbai's handling of the matter. He could not help but sigh at the general's rich experience in handling matters. He had almost solved such a troublesome matter in a few moves. Next, Long Yu and Hui Yuanbai did not need to do anything. The news of Zhou Xiongliang's murder would spread throughout the entire Nightmare Mountain range. All the martial cultivators in the Nightmare Army would know about it. After all, this was not a small matter. In this way, Long Yu and Hui Yuanbai would be in a position of reason. Even if the deputy commander of the Imperial Guards in Azura Valley wanted to avenge his son, he would have to weigh the weight of Hui Yuanbai and the entire Nightmare Army. "Thank you, General Hua. I will definitely do my best and not let you down." Old Jiu could not help but be excited when he heard that Hui Yuanbai wanted him to follow him. General Hui Yuanbai could be said to be the military god of the entire Azure prefecture. Countless people worshipped him. How could anyone have the chance to follow him? Although it was just helping him tidy up the refining materials, even if Hui Yuanbai gave him some pointers on martial arts, he would definitely benefit greatly. He might even be able to break through the bottleneck of martial arts. Enough with the nonsense. Right, that's where my weaponry refining platform is located. In the backyard of the weaponry refining platform, there are a lot of weaponry refining materials. Go and sort them out for me. After you're done, come see me here." Hui Yuanbai smiled and pointed at the wooden hut where he refined weapons, then had Old Nine run over. Old Jiu happily ran over. Although he was doing hard labor, he was willing to do it. This was much better than working hard with Zhou Xiongliang to dig for ores. Hui Yuanbai glanced at Hui Jiu's retreating back before turning to enter the house. Long Yu and Hui Yuanbai sat facing each other. "General Hua, I didn't expect you to handle things so decisively." Long Yu couldn't help but praise. "If I didn't do things quickly, those bastards from the Ghost Evil County would have already attacked." Hui Yuanbai smiled and shook his head. "Little Long, you don't have to thank me. This Deputy General Zhou Li has been coveting my position as the General of the Nightmare Legion because he's from the Zhou family. Although I can give up the position, Zhou Li doesn't have the guts. If I hand the Nightmare Legion over to him, I'm afraid that the bastard from the Ghost Evil County will attack us soon. Long Yu nodded, finally understanding Hui Yuanbai's meaning. No wonder Deputy General Zhou Li was so disrespectful to Hui Yuanbai. It turned out that he wanted to usurp the position. In that case, the entire Zhou family was not a good person. They had all fallen into the vortex of power. If there's a suitable successor, I would like to leave this place and live a peaceful life for a while. Or I can follow the regional king and see if I can break through to the Emperor Path's secret realm in my lifetime. Hui Yuanbai sighed as he spoke, looking rather melancholic. When Long Yu saw this, he immediately laughed. General, on the path of the martial Tao, one must have an imposing manner that pushes forward without hesitation. Although I'm only at the human tribulation realm, I know that if I worry about gains and losses when breaking through the bottleneck of the martial Tao, the chances of failure are high. Hui Yuanbai's eyes lit up when he heard this. Little brat, you're right. Hui Yuanbai's eyes suddenly flickered. On the path of the martial Tao, breaking through bottlenecks is mostly a matter of mentality. Now that I think of myself as old, I'm only trying to face the bottleneck with the mentality of giving it a try. How can I succeed? Ha ha! All of a sudden, Hui Yuanbai's spirit seemed to have been lifted. Originally, Hui Yuanbai's spirit came from his position as the general of the Nightmare Legion and not from a martial Tao powerhouse. However, Long Yu's simple words made Hui Yuanbai realize that there was something wrong with his mentality. If he did not have confidence in breaking through the bottleneck of the martial Tao, how could he really succeed? The heavy responsibility of leading the entire Nightmare Mountain range was on Hui Yuanbai's shoulders. He had been focused on this for so long that he had almost forgotten that he was a martial Tao powerhouse. I didn't expect the princess to bring me such a talent. Ha. Hui Yuanbai looked at Long Yu with eyes full of admiration and said, Long Yu, although you killed Zhou Xiongliang and offended the deputy commander of the Azura Valley's Imperial Guard, you don't need to worry. You're the princess's subordinate, so it won't be easy for the deputy commander to touch you. Of course, it's still possible for him to plot against you. You have to be careful. When Long Yu heard this, he laughed bitterly. This time, because I offended some unknown person, I was schemed against and forced into the valley where the Azura holy tree is located. Fortunately, I managed to hold on for 9 days and didn't die. That's why the princess let me hide my identity and send me here. Azura sacred tree? Good kid, you managed to survive for 9 days in that place. Hui Yuanbai was shocked. It seems that my estimation of your strength wasn't accurate enough. Luck. I found a broken, desolate grade combat weapon. I should be safe hiding in it. Long Yu smiled. He had already displayed the ancient dragon skeleton tower to the heavenly tribulation martial cultivators who were chasing him. He believed that others would soon find out about it. Since that was the case, there was no need to hide it from Hui Yuanbai. After all, Hui Yuanbai had just helped him solve a huge problem. If Long Yu were to face Zhou Li, he would definitely be crushed by the latter's pinky. That's impressive enough. There are only a few desolate grade combat weapons in the entire Azura prefecture. Hui Yuanbai patted Long Yu's shoulder and laughed. If you don't mind, you can let me have a look at the combat weapon. I've refined a heaven grade combat weapon before, so I'm quite interested in seeing a desolate grade combat weapon. Perhaps I can repair it for you? Hearing that, Long Yu could not afford to be stingy. With a thought, he activated the 9 Underworld's dragon scale and released the ancient dragon skeleton pagoda. However, it did not grow in size. Instead, it floated before them like a miniature pagoda. This is the desolate grade combat weapon? Hui Yuanbai frowned slightly when he sensed a different aura from the combat weapon. It does seem powerful. Unfortunately, I've never seen a combat weapon like this before. I'm afraid I won't be able to repair it. Not only that, I've never seen the material of this combat weapon before. It's sturdier than the best material I've ever seen. I only found it by chance. Long Yu shook his head. Forget it, put it away. Hui Yuanbai shook his head. It seems that a grand, desolate level warrior is not something that can be produced easily. Not only are the materials hard to come by, but the craftsmanship is also very advanced. Also, the craftsmanship has to be in the right place at the right time. Long Yu put away the ancient dragon bone pagoda and did not say anything. By the way, Long Yu, the princess said to leave you here for 2 months. You've only just arrived, and you've already caused trouble. I'm afraid it won't be easy from now on. Hui Yuanbai pondered for a moment before he suddenly said, by the way, why don't you go to the Ghost Evil Prefecture and kill some of their martial cultivators? That way, you'll have made a great contribution. It's best if you can get a reward from the regional king through the princess. General, please tell me the purpose of this. Long Yu asked with a frown. Isn't that obvious? If your contribution attracts the attention of the regional king, then the Zhou clan won't dare to do anything to you, not even in the dark. Hui Yuanbai laughed. I rarely admire others in my life, but our regional king is one of them. He's in charge of Shura province, and he pays the most attention to protecting martial cultivators. If you catch the regional king's attention, you'll be safe, unless they want to offend the regional king. But in the entire Shura province, no one would dare to offend the regional king. I see. Long Yu nodded slowly. However, General, it won't be easy to kill the martial cultivators of the Ghost Evil Prefecture, right? Plus, I'm only at the human tribulation realm. I heard that the martial cultivators of the Ghost Evil Prefecture are all cunning. They won't be easy to deal with. That's why I sent you. If you succeed, it'll be a great contribution. If there's no danger, why would you attract the regional king's attention? Hui Yuanbai looked at Long Yu and chuckled. I see that your dagger is of good quality. It's even stronger than the ancient pagoda you showed me earlier. If you use it with an assassination technique, even a tribulation realm martial cultivator won't be able to stop you. Oh, General can teach me assassination techniques? Long Yu's eyes lit up. He didn't expect Hui Yuanbai to understand him so well in such a short time. He also didn't expect Hui Yuanbai to know that Long Yu lacked an assassination technique. The demonic slaughter technique is a common assassination technique used by our Nightmare Legion. Although it's only a high-grade profound rank, it's easy to understand and learn. Hui Yuanbai smiled faintly. Ordinary Sky Realm martial cultivators only need 7 days to get started with the demonic slaughter art. For you, I believe the time will be even shorter. A high-grade profound rank technique is enough. Long Yu's eyes lit up. The penetrating power of the Void Underworld Dragon Blade was already strong enough. What he lacked the most now was a technique to use the Void Underworld Dragon Blade. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.